Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Facts channel. Tonight, we drift into the quiet, timeless world of weather, the gentle motions of air and light that have shaped every day of your life without ever asking to be noticed. As you settle in, I invite you to take a deep, slow breath, allowing your body to soften and your thoughts to loosen like leaves floating on a slow-moving stream. The sky above you, even now, is unfolding in patterns older than mountains, older than forests, older than the very soil beneath your feet. Weather is not just a forecast or a change in temperature. It is the soft, continuous heartbeat of the planet, a rhythm that has never once paused since Earth first formed its air. Even in this moment, the atmosphere is moving in calm and patient waves, guiding warmth from places that have never known winter toward lands where snow lingers on the horizon. High above, thin trails of cirrus clouds stretch across the sky like threads of silk, drifting hundreds of miles in silence. Lower down, invisible currents spiral gently, carrying scents, moisture, and memory from distant regions you will never see, yet whose breath touches you all the same. The air that fills your lungs has traveled through deserts and valleys, crossed oceans, and glided along mountain slopes, changing shape and temperature as it wandered its ancient path. Somewhere, perhaps far away, the sun is rising into a clear sky, warming the edges of the morning, and somewhere else, night is falling through a curtain of soft rain. This is the quiet beauty of weather. It is always happening, always shifting, yet never rushing. It moves at the pace of the earth itself, slow, cyclical, and endlessly gentle. As you begin to relax into these drifting thoughts, imagine the atmosphere as a great ocean of air surrounding the planet. We tend to picture the sky as empty space, but it is more like a vast, fluid sea made of countless molecules dancing just beyond sight. In this ocean, clouds are the floating islands, drifting not by chance but by delicate balances of buoyancy and temperature. Even the smallest cloud holds millions of tiny droplets, each one formed around a microscopic speck of dust or salt carried upward from the ground. Every droplet rises or falls depending on subtle shifts of warmth, creating the gentle shapes that frame our mornings and soften our evenings. Most clouds weigh more than elephants, yet they float because the air beneath them lifts upward in quiet updrafts. The sky, it turns out, is full of hidden paradoxes, like this soft illusions hiding the precise physics that guide them. Weather is both intimate and infinite. You feel it on your skin, hear it in the trees, smell it in the air after rainfall, yet the forces that create it span continents. A breeze brushing past your face may have begun as warm air rising from a sunlit field thousands of miles away. A raindrop landing softly on your window may have once been vapor drifting over an ocean. The sunlight scattered above you may have traveled across 93 million miles before brushing the atmosphere in just the right way to make the sky glow blue. In this way, weather connects every place to every other place. No moment in the sky is isolated. Every swirl of wind, every stretch of cloud, every distant rumble of thunder is part of a conversation happening around the entire planet, an endless whisper shared between land, sea, and air. At night, when the world grows quiet, the atmosphere does something almost magical. The warmth gathered through the day slowly escapes back into space, cooling the land and letting the air settle into softer rhythms. Breezes weaken, clouds thin, and the sky becomes a deep, calming shade of blue-black. Far above, the jet stream, a river of fast-moving air, continues its ancient journey, guiding storms and shaping the weather patterns of tomorrow. But down near the ground, near where you rest, the air becomes gentle, slower, and more patient. It's why nights so often feel peaceful. The atmosphere, like you, is settling in for a long exhale. Weather also holds memories, not in the way a photograph does, but in the quiet way nature keeps track of its own rhythms. A snowflake carries the story of the air it fell through. A gust of wind carries the temperature of the region it left behind. A cloud drifting overhead tells a tale of evaporation, rising currents, and the sun's distant warmth. Every rainstorm is the completion of a cycle that may have begun weeks earlier, perhaps on a calm morning when sunlight warmed a still pool of water and lifted its vapor skyward. By the time that vapor returns as rain, it has traveled in silence over forests, mountains, and fields, stitching together landscapes with its gentle presence. Even the colors of the sky are shaped by tenderness. Sunlight, though white to our eyes, contains all colors. As it enters the atmosphere, tiny molecules scatter the shorter wavelengths, the blues and violets in every direction, painting the sky with the soft hue we know so well. At sunrise and sunset, when the sun's light passes through more of the atmosphere, the blues scatter away completely, leaving the warm reds and oranges that settle over the world like a slow exhale. These colors are not the sky itself, they are light interacting with air, a silent partnership that has played out every day since Earth first formed its atmosphere billions of years ago. And then there is the sound of weather, perhaps the most soothing part of all. The soft patter of rain tapping leaves and rooftops, the rustling of wind through branches, the low rumble of faraway thunder, stretched by distance into a gentle, rolling murmur. These sounds are born from movement, water falling, air flowing, clouds shifting, yet they rarely feel chaotic. They are reminders of the planet's natural rhythm, a rhythm so ancient and steady that it touches something deep within us. Humans have always been comforted by the sounds of nature's breath. Rainstorms soothed our earliest ancestors. Gentle winds carried the scents of blooming seasons, long before cities or roads existed. Weather has been our companion through all of time. As you prepare to drift deeper into this quiet journey, let your breathing match the slow rise and fall of the atmosphere itself. Inhale as warm air rises in great, gentle columns. Exhale as cool air settles softly toward the ground. Feel yourself becoming part of the same calm cycle, a small yet meaningful piece of the planet's endless exchange of energy and air. The atmosphere does not hurry, and tonight, neither do you. Let the softness of weather, the drifting clouds, the wandering winds, the quiet shimmer of light, guide you into a peaceful stillness. The sky as an ocean of air. If you look upward on a clear day, it is easy to imagine that the sky is empty, a vast and weightless expanse stretching from horizon to horizon. Yet the truth is far more gentle and far more wondrous. Above you lies not a hollow space, but a deep and shimmering ocean made of air, layered and moving with currents as soft and ancient as the planet itself. This ocean is invisible only because its particles are too small for our eyes to see, but they are always there, brushing against your skin, filling your lungs, and flowing around mountains and trees in a quiet, ceaseless dance. As you breathe slowly now, you are participating in that movement, part of a vast exchange that has never once paused since the earliest days of Earth. Imagine the atmosphere as a delicate shell wrapped around the planet, though it is thicker and deeper than it appears. If you could travel upward through it, you would find that it behaves just like a great sea, one that grows thinner, colder, and quieter as you rise. Near the surface, where you stand now, the air is dense enough to carry the earthy scent of rain, the warmth of sunlight, and the songs of birds drifting across the morning. This lower layer is alive with motion, stirred by the heat of the sun during the day and cooled by the gentle release of warmth at night. It churns softly, creating breezes that curl through valleys and whisper through open windows. And just like water in the ocean, this air flows in waves that rise, fall, and shift, guiding weather patterns that circle the globe in patient rhythms. When sunlight touches the surface of the earth, it warms the ground unevenly. Some places fields, rooftops, patches of dry soil heat quickly, while forests, lakes, and shaded valleys stay cooler. These small contrasts create rising plumes of warm air and descending pockets of cool air, forming invisible currents that drift upward and downward like the tides. It is this gentle movement that allows birds to glide for hours without flapping their wings, riding on thermals that lift them skyward like slow, warm elevators. Even now, somewhere far from where you rest, a hawk or an eagle is circling effortlessly on a column of rising air, trusting the atmosphere the way a swimmer trusts water to hold them. As you imagine these currents, let your mind move with them, lifting a little with each breath and settling softly with each exhale. The atmosphere does not rush. It never tries to force its way from one place to another. Even when storms build or winds gather strength, the motions that create them begin as gentle nudges, small differences in warmth that expand outward over time. Weather, at its heart, is the story of heat and cold finding balance across the entire surface of the planet, a slow and steady negotiation that continues day and night without end. Even the most distant hurricane begins with a warm patch of ocean and a soft upward drift of vapor, just as every snowfall begins with air cooling quietly above a silent field. If you could stand at the edge of space and look down at Earth, you would see this ocean of air glowing faintly blue, a thin yet vital layer wrapped around the world like a breath held in perfect stillness. From that vantage point, clouds would appear as swirls of white foam floating on a transparent sea. Storms would form as spirals, moving with the grace of slow-turning galaxies. The entire atmosphere, from the ground to the uppermost layers, would ripple with motion, shaped by sunlight, gravity, and the rotation of the Earth, all working together in gentle harmony. And yet, even from so far away, the air would look delicate, almost fragile, a reminder that everything we know and breathe depends on this soft blanket of gas surrounding the world. Closer to the surface, this ocean of air carries life within it. Seeds drift across fields and forests on these currents, traveling far beyond the place where they first grew. Pollen rises and settles, tracing the pathways of wind. Even tiny insects ride these currents, lifted effortlessly by the same rising plumes that birds use to soar. A dragonfly might be carried miles along a breeze that began its journey in the warmth of a morning sunbeam. A grain of dust could drift upward from a desert, rising high enough to cross oceans and settle on distant shores. In this way, the atmosphere connects every place to every other place, stitching together landscapes with threads of moving air. The ocean of air is not silent. Even when the world seems still, it carries soft sounds across its surface. Leaves rustle because the air is shifting around them. Grass sways because the atmosphere is breathing. A distant chime or a faint whisper of wind is carried to you by these ever-changing currents. Sometimes, when the evening cools, the air becomes so smooth and calm that sound travels farther than usual. Voices carry across lakes. Footsteps echo in quiet streets. The atmosphere becomes a gentle conductor, guiding vibrations with clarity and ease. This too is part of its ocean-like nature, for just as sound travels differently through deep water, it moves through air in ways shaped by temperature, humidity, and the softness of the breeze. At night, the atmosphere calms even more, settling into layers like a resting sea. The warmth gathered during the day rises slowly into the sky, where it is released into the vastness of space. Cool air sinks toward the ground, forming a quiet blanket that hugs the earth. Dew begins to appear as tiny droplets on leaves and blades of grass. forming when the cooling air can no longer hold all its moisture. These droplets glisten in the early light of morning, each one a miniature lens capturing the first hints of color in the sky. They are the marks of the ocean of air, settling into its evening rhythm, a sign that the atmosphere is resting, just as you are now. If you could follow a single particle of air on its journey, you would find it moves with gentle unpredictability. First, it might rise a few feet, carried by warmth from the sun-warmed ground. Then it might drift sideways, shaped by a passing breeze. Later, it could descend again as the air cools, weaving an intricate and endless path. This drifting motion has been happening since long before humans walked the earth. The atmosphere has carried volcanic ash, stardust, the scent of rain, and the breath of forests through countless ages. The same air that surrounds you now once flowed past ancient mountains, swept across oceans that no longer exist, and held snowflakes that cooled the world during ice ages long forgotten. As you breathe in, imagine you are drawing in a piece of that history, a tiny, quiet part of the Earth's wandering air. And as you breathe out, imagine you are returning something to that ocean, letting your breath join the soft movements of the sky. In this way, you are part of the atmosphere's story, connected through motion, warmth, and stillness to every corner of the world. The sky above you is not distant or separate. It is an ocean in which you live, move, and rest, always enveloped by its gentle presence. Let this thought settle softly within you, like a feather drifting downward through still air. The atmosphere is patient, it is vast, it is calm when you allow yourself to be calm. And as you close your eyes and let your breathing slow, you may feel yourself drifting with it, carried by the same quiet currents that guide clouds across wide open skies. 2. Why clouds float. When you look up at the sky and watch clouds drifting gently overhead, it can feel almost impossible to imagine how something so large, so heavy with moisture, can remain suspended in the air. They look like vast floating mountains, soft and luminous, wandering across the blue without ever falling to the ground. And yet they drift effortlessly, as if the sky were holding them in its hands. To understand why clouds float is to understand something quiet and beautiful about the atmosphere, something that reveals how the world balances itself with perfect softness. As you settle into this moment, allow your breath to move slowly and evenly, rising like warm air and falling like cool currents, mirroring the calm dances that keep clouds aloft. A cloud begins with something incredibly small, a single grain of dust or salt carried upward by the breeze. Around that tiny speck, water vapor begins to cling, forming droplets so light that they barely weigh more than nothing at all. Each droplet is so tiny that millions of them together are needed just to form the faintest wisp of cloud. These droplets are gathered by air that is rising, lifted by warmth from the Earth's surface. When sunlight warms the ground, that heat travels upward, warming the air just above it. Warm air expands, becoming lighter than the cooler air around it, and like a bubble rising through water, it drifts gently upward into the sky. This rising air carries vapor with it, and as it climbs higher, the temperature begins to drop. Cooler air cannot hold as much moisture, so some of that vapor begins to condense, forming droplets that gather into the soft shapes we call clouds. These droplets do have weight, even though each one is unimaginably small. Yet clouds float because the upward movement of warm air, called an updraft, continually supports them, holding them in suspension, much like a steady underwater current can keep sediment from falling to the sea floor. As long as the air beneath a cloud is rising, even gently, the droplets remain suspended, drifting and reshaping themselves with every subtle shift of temperature and wind. In this way, a cloud is not a solid object drifting through space. It is a process, a moment of balance between rising warmth and cooling air, between the softness of vapor and the firmness of gravity. It is a living shape made not of substance, but of movement. Imagine standing in a quiet field on a warm afternoon. The sun has been shining for hours, warming the grass, the soil, and the stones scattered across the ground. The air just above the earth becomes warm and begins to rise, lifting tiny particles of dust, pollen, and moisture upward. If you could see that rising air, it would look like shimmering waves drifting toward the sky, and somewhere above that field, a cloud begins to form. It grows slowly, the way breath fogs a cool window, gathering into a soft cluster. This cloud floats because the air that lifted it continues to rise beneath it, carrying each droplet gently upward, or keeping it suspended in a delicate cradle of motion. Clouds do not float because they defy gravity. They float because the atmosphere itself is always moving, always shifting, always balancing warm air with cool air. As you imagine this, let yourself feel the simplicity of that balance. Warmth rises, coolness sinks. The world feels its way into equilibrium, and the sky responds with shapes that drift like dreams across the horizon. A cloud's entire existence depends on this quiet tug-of-war. If the rising air beneath it weakens, the droplets may begin to fall, but often they evaporate before reaching the ground, returning to invisible vapor long before they could become rain. This is why many clouds pass overhead without ever releasing a drop. They are constantly forming and dissolving, held together by nothing more than the gentle breath of the atmosphere. The size of a cloud can be astonishing when you consider how it remains afloat. A typical small cloud can weigh as much as several elephants, while a large thundercloud can weigh millions of pounds. Yet weight does not behave in the sky the way it does on the ground. What matters is density, how heavy something is compared to the air around it. Cloud droplets are incredibly light, and the spaces between them are vast. The cloud is mostly air, with droplets scattered throughout like distant stars in the night sky. Imagine a handful of tiny beads floating inside a room. The beads have weight, but if the air in the room were rising steadily, they could hover in suspension, drifting upward and downward depending on the smallest changes in air movement. Clouds behave the same way. Their droplets are supported by air that is light enough and energetic enough to keep them aloft. There is also something delicate about the way clouds form that helps them float. The droplets inside a cloud are not large raindrops. Raindrops are much heavier, formed only when many droplets collide and merge into larger drops. Cloud droplets, by contrast, are so small, often only a few micrometers across, that their weight is almost nothing. They fall extremely slowly, at speeds so gentle that the lightest breeze lifts them back upward. Even a tiny upward nudge of warm air is enough to counteract their descent. So the cloud stays suspended, drifting wherever the wind chooses to carry it, reshaping its edges with every shift in the atmosphere. If you close your eyes and imagine yourself floating in that same gentle way, rising and falling with warm and cool currents, you may feel the slow, calming rhythm that governs the sky. Clouds do not rush. They do not struggle. They move with the patience of the atmosphere, trusting the currents that hold them aloft. Even when they shift quickly or stretch into new shapes, the movement is smooth and organic, shaped by air rather than force. There is something soothing in that, something that mirrors the slow rhythms of your own breathing. The color of clouds, too, tells you something about why they float. A bright white cloud scatters sunlight through millions of droplets, each bending and diffusing the light in all directions. These droplets are small and numerous, suspended high where light easily reaches them. A dark cloud, on the other hand, contains larger droplets, closer together, blocking more sunlight. These clouds are often heavier, forming when rising air carries more moisture or when droplets begin merging into raindrops. Yet even these heavier clouds float, held aloft by stronger updrafts that rise through the atmosphere. Only when the droplets grow large enough, too heavy for the rising air to support, does rain begin to fall, pulled downward by gravity in a soft cascade. The next time you see a cloud drifting overhead, consider how far it has traveled. Clouds can move across continents, carried by winds that encircle the entire planet. A cloud forming over a warm patch of ocean may ride the trade winds for hundreds of miles before dissolving over land. Another may form over mountains, lifted by air forced upward along steep slopes, then drift down on the other side of the range. Some clouds rise high into the atmosphere and travel along the fast-moving jet stream, crossing great distances in a single day. And yet, no matter how far they wander, they remain weightless in appearance, floating because the sky is always breathing underneath them. As your mind drifts with these thoughts, allow yourself to feel the same sense of buoyancy. Clouds float not because they are free of weight, but because they are part of a system that supports them through constant, gentle motion. They rise when the air rises. They settle when the air settles. They transform, dissolve, and form again, always at the mercy of sunlight, warmth, and the slow currents of the sky. There is a lesson in their softness, in their willingness to be shaped by the moment. Tonight, as you grow more relaxed, imagine yourself drifting like a cloud, calm, supported, weightless, held gently by the quiet breath of the world. 3. The hidden colors inside sunlight. When you look at sunlight, it appears simple, warm, and white. It spills across a room in the morning, touches the leaves of trees with gentle brightness, and glows softly across the horizon at dusk. Yet sunlight is not a single color at all. It is a quiet symphony of every color the human eye can perceive, blended so perfectly that they become indistinguishable until the sky itself begins to separate them. Tonight, we drift into the calm and delicate science of this hidden light, exploring how the atmosphere turns invisible wavelengths into the soft blues of the daytime sky, the warm golds of sunset, and the gentle pinks that linger long after the sun slips below the horizon. As you settle your breathing into an easy rhythm, imagine the sunlight unraveling slowly, like threads of color drifting through the air, each one moving with the unhurried grace of the sky. Sunlight begins deep within the heart of the sun, where atoms collide and fuse, releasing energy that travels outward through millions of miles of searing plasma. By the time this light reaches Earth, it has already journeyed for more than 8 minutes across the emptiness of space, carrying with it every shade of the spectrum. If you could see sunlight before it enters the atmosphere, you would see it as a clean, brilliant white, containing reds, oranges, yellows, greens, blues, indigos, and violets all woven together. It is only when sunlight meets the ocean of air surrounding our planet that its hidden colors begin to reveal themselves, scattered gently in different directions by the tiny molecules that make up the sky. The process that creates the blue of the sky is called scattering, but you can imagine it more peacefully, like sunlight slipping into a room of tiny dancers. Each air molecule, nitrogen, oxygen, and trace gases, interacts with the arriving light in its own subtle way. The shorter wavelengths, such as blues and violets, are scattered far more easily than the longer wavelengths, like reds and oranges. These shorter wavelengths bounce from molecule to molecule, drifting freely and spreading across the sky, creating the soft, familiar blue that surrounds us during the day. But because the human eye is more sensitive to blue than violet, the scattered color we see is a gentle, calming hue that blankets the atmosphere. If you've ever watched the sky on a clear morning, you may notice that near the horizon, the blue becomes lighter, sometimes almost pale. This happens because the light must pass through more of the atmosphere when viewed at a shallow angle. More scattering occurs, mixing the blue light with white light that has been reflected and diffused. The result is a gradient of color that softens the world, creating a calm backdrop for the shapes of clouds drifting across it. In those moments, the sky feels like a vast canvas painted by light itself, a mixture of clarity and haze that changes with every breath of wind. Sunlight also interacts with particles larger than molecules, tiny droplets of water, grains of dust, and crystals of ice. These particles scatter light differently, often in ways that produce halos, glows, and shimmering effects. If you've ever seen the sun surrounded by a pale ring, or the clouds glowing with soft iridescence, you've witnessed these larger particles bending and dividing light into its hidden colors. In these rare moments, the sky reveals something delicate, as if offering a quiet reminder that even the most familiar light can surprise us with its beauty. As the day progresses, the angle of the sun changes, and with it, the path of light through the atmosphere becomes longer. When the sun approaches the horizon during sunrise or sunset, it must pass through far more air than when it is overhead. The short wavelengths, the blues and violets, scatter out of the direct path of sunlight long before the light reaches your eyes. What remains are the longer, deeper wavelengths, reds, oranges, and golds. These warmer colors slip across the horizon with gentle certainty, painting the world in hues that feel soft and ancient, as if the sky is remembering something from long ago. This scattering creates the rich glow of twilight, a time when the world seems to exhale. Colors become layered and calm, shifting from orange to rose to soft purple as the sun's last rays fade. Twilight light is uniquely peaceful because it is the product of sunlight being filtered and softened by thousands of kilometers of atmosphere. What reaches you during these moments is not the harsh brilliance of day, but the quiet glow of a star whose light has been shaped by air, dust, and time. Even after the sun has dipped below the horizon, its light continues to illuminate the upper atmosphere, scattering downward to reach you in gentle waves. This creates the lingering glow that persists long after the sun itself has disappeared, a reminder that the sky moves slowly, never rushing the transition between day and night. Rainbows are another way the sky reveals the hidden colors inside sunlight. When sunlight enters a raindrop, it slows down, bends, and then reflects inside the droplet before emerging again. This bending separates the light into distinct colors, just as a prism divides sunlight into a spectrum. The raindrop acts as a tiny lens, splitting the white light into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Each color emerges at a slightly different angle, forming the graceful curve we see in the sky. A rainbow appears only when sunlight is shining behind you and raindrops are falling ahead of you, a fleeting alignment of light and motion that reveals the quiet geometry hidden inside water and air. Every rainbow is unique. No two people see the same rainbow in exactly the same way, because the angles of light reflected from the raindrops depend on where each person stands. The rainbow you see is your own personal arc of light, created just for your eyes in that moment. And just as clouds drift and dissolve, a rainbow glows only for a brief breath of time before the raindrops fall away or the angle of the sun shifts. It reminds us that beauty in the sky is often temporary, meant to be witnessed quietly and then released. There are even rarer forms of atmospheric color. Sundogs, for example, are bright patches of light that appear on either side of the sun when ice crystals fill the sky. These crystals act as tiny mirrors, bending sunlight into warm, glowing arcs. Sometimes, a full halo forms around the sun or moon, a pale ring created by millions of tiny prisms suspended high in the atmosphere. These optical phenomena are like gentle messages from the upper layers of the sky, where the air becomes so thin and cold that only ice can remain. In these moments, sunlight interacts not only with dust or droplets, but but with the architecture of frozen crystals, producing colors and shapes that seem to belong to another world. Light also plays with the edges of clouds, turning them gold at dawn and dusk, or outlining them with silver during the brighter hours of the day. When sunlight catches the tops of clouds, it illuminates them in a soft, glowing wash, while the underside remains cool and shadowed. This interplay of light and shadow gives depth to the sky, shaping the clouds into mountains, valleys, and quiet, drifting forms. In the late afternoon, when the sun is low, clouds often appear more dramatic, their edges glowing, while their centers hold deep shades of gray and blue. The world becomes a painting, each cloud a brushstroke placed by the slow hand of the atmosphere. As you sit with these thoughts, let your breathing slow to match the unhurried pace of light traveling through the sky. Sunlight reveals its colors only because of the atmosphere, because of the air you breathe, the particles that float above you, the delicate balance of molecules and temperature that expands overhead. Without the atmosphere, the sky would be black even in full sunlight, colorless and silent. It is the ocean of air surrounding Earth that allows light to scatter, bend, and transform into the hues that comfort us at dawn and soothe us at dusk. Tonight, as you relax deeper into stillness, imagine sunlight unraveling across the sky, each color drifting in soft currents. Imagine the atmosphere catching these colors like a gentle net, spreading them across the world in quiet patterns. The hidden colors of sunlight are always there, waiting patiently in every beam of light, ready to bloom into the sky the moment they touch the air. 4 raindrops are not tear-shaped. When most people imagine a raindrop, they picture the shape of a teardrop, rounded at the bottom, narrow at the top, falling from the sky like a bead of glass. It is an image shaped by drawings, cartoons, and centuries of human imagination. Yet the truth is far softer, far stranger, and far more elegant than the simple teardrop shape we carry in our minds. Real raindrops are tiny spheres drifting through the air, each held in balance by the delicate forces of surface tension and the gentle resistance of the atmosphere. As you breathe slowly now, imagine these droplets forming and falling with a grace that mirrors the rise and fall of your own breath, each one shaped not by emotion or symbolism, but by the quiet physics of water and air. A raindrop begins its life as something incredibly small, a vapor molecule drifting through the atmosphere, carried upward by warm, rising air. At high altitudes, where the air cools, this vapor condenses onto a speck of dust or salt, forming a tiny droplet so small that it is almost weightless. These early droplets are perfectly spherical, held together by surface tension, a force that acts like an invisible skin surrounding the water, pulling its molecules inward. Surface tension is the reason water beads into small rounded drops on leaves, on your skin, or on the surface of a smooth stone. It is a quiet, cohesive force, gentle but strong enough to give liquid water its familiar sense of roundness. When these microscopic droplets gather together within a cloud, they collide with each other, joining to form larger droplets. Even then, they remain spherical, because the round shape minimizes their surface area and stabilizes the bonds between water molecules. If you could float inside a cloud and look closely at the droplets drifting around you, they would look like tiny floating pearls, thousands upon thousands of them, suspended in the air like microscopic worlds. They are so small that they fall incredibly slowly, at rates so gentle that the slightest updraft can keep them from ever reaching the ground. Many droplets inside a cloud rise and fall repeatedly, evaporating, reforming, merging, and drifting, sometimes remaining suspended for hours before eventually beginning their descent as rain. As a droplet grows large enough to fall, its shape begins to change, but not into a tear. The change is subtle at first. The drop remains rounded, but the airflow rushing around it as it falls flattens its bottom slightly, as though the droplet is being pressed gently by the hand of the wind. The faster it falls, the more the bottom flattens, eventually giving the raindrop a shape more like a tiny hamburger bun than a teardrop. This flattened shape is caused not by emotion but by the interplay of gravity pulling downward and the air pushing upward as the droplet moves through it. Larger raindrops flatten even further, forming shapes with gentle curves on top and wide, rounded bottoms. If the drop grows too large, the resistance of the air becomes too great for the surface tension to hold it together. At that moment, the droplet begins to wobble, stretch, and eventually split into smaller droplets that return to their rounded, spherical form. This is why raindrops rarely exceed about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Larger ones simply cannot maintain their integrity. The sky corrects them gently, breaking them apart into smaller, more stable shapes that drift downward with a quiet steadiness. In this way, rain is not a single stream of falling water, but a constantly shifting cascade of droplets forming, breaking, and reforming as they descend. Each raindrop has its own story, its own journey through the air, shaped by temperature, humidity, and the invisible currents moving through the sky. Some droplets fall only a short distance before evaporating again, never touching the ground. Others descend from great heights, passing through layers of warm and cool air, their shapes changing subtly as they travel. The moment they land on a leaf, a roof, a window, or the earth itself, they lose their identity entirely, merging into larger pools or sinking quietly into the soil. The sound of rain, too, depends on the shape and size of these falling droplets. Small raindrops make a softer, more delicate pattering sound, almost like whispers against the ground. Larger raindrops strike with more energy, producing louder taps and splashes. When they strike leaves, the shape of the droplet determines how the leaf vibrates, creating the soothing rhythms of a rainy forest. When they fall on rooftops or sidewalks, their impact is softened by the thin film of water that quickly forms after the first few drops arrive. This film cushions each drop, turning sharp impacts into gentle, calming sounds. In this way, the very shape of raindrops influences the music of a storm. If you've ever stood outside during a gentle rain and felt the droplets on your skin, you may have noticed that they feel round, like small, cool spheres rolling down your arms or gathering on your hands. This is your own experience confirming the science. Raindrops do not fall in the shape of tears. They fall as spheres, or flattened spheres, shaped by the same forces that make a bead of dew glisten on a blade of grass. That cool, rounded touch is the signature of surface tension, the quiet force that holds water together even as it travels miles through the atmosphere. Raindrops also carry memories of the air they fall through. As they descend, they absorb tiny particles, dust, pollen, salt, even microscopic organisms capturing a sample of the sky within them. When a raindrop lands, it brings with it the faint chemical signature of the place it has traveled, marking the passing of weather with subtle traces. Scientists can sometimes study raindrops or layers of accumulated rainwater to learn about atmospheric conditions, pollution, storms, and the invisible life drifting through the air. Each droplet is a messenger carrying a story of its journey, shaped by the winds and currents it passed through. The way raindrops scatter light also depends on their spherical shape. The soft glow of a rainbow, the shimmering halos around streetlights during a shower, the glistening sheen on wet pavement. All of these effects arise because raindrops behave like tiny lenses. They bend, refract, and reflect light in precise ways that only spherical droplets can. Without their round shape, rainbows would look very different, their colors distorted or incomplete. It is the nearly perfect curve of each falling drop that splits sunlight into the smooth arc of colors that we recognize as a rainbow. The sky uses geometry to craft beauty. using droplets shaped by surface tension and motion to paint the air with color. When rain falls gently at night, the droplets catch and scatter the glow of distant lights, creating a soft haze that makes the world appear blurred and dreamlike. This effect is born from the droplets' ability to bend light, creating halos and glimmers around lamps and windows. These tiny distortions of light help give rainy nights their quiet, reflective feel, as if each drop is slowing the world just a little, softening its edges and guiding the mind toward rest. As you breathe deeply now, imagine the raindrops forming high above you, coming together from vapor into tiny spheres of cooling water. Picture them drifting downward, held in perfect balance between gravity and the push of the air. Each drop is shaped by peace, not by urgency, moving slowly through the atmosphere until it meets the earth with the gentlest touch. Rain is not a rush downward, but a quiet surrender to the pull of the world, each droplet falling only when the balance of forces allows it. Tonight, let yourself mirror that balance. Let yourself feel supported, as a raindrop feels supported by the air beneath it. Let your thoughts drift downward slowly, gently, until they come to rest. The sky, in its quiet wisdom, teaches us that even falling can be soft. Even descent can be peaceful. 5. The slow journey of a snowflake. A snowflake begins not with winter or cold, but with a single drifting particle suspended high in the sky. It may be a speck of dust lifted from the earth, a grain of salt carried from the sea, or even a fragment of ash from a distant fire. Alone, it is invisible, lost in the vastness of the atmosphere. But when it meets a pocket of air, cold enough to freeze the moisture around it, something quiet and extraordinary begins to happen. A thin layer of ice forms upon its surface, and from that instant, the delicate birth of a snowflake is set into motion. Tonight, as you breathe softly and let your thoughts drift like gentle winter air, we will follow the slow, peaceful journey of a single snowflake as it unfolds through the sky. At the moment of its creation, the snowflake is no larger than the smallest grain of sand. Yet its shape is already guided by the invisible architecture of water molecules. When water freezes, its molecules arrange themselves in a precise hexagonal pattern, linking together at angles that form the basis of every snowflake that has ever fallen. This molecular geometry is the reason all snowflakes have 6 sides, 6 branches, and a symmetry so perfect that it feels impossible to have arisen from pure chance. But chance plays its part too, shaping the snowflake with each subtle change in humidity, temperature, and movement of air it encounters. As the snowflake drifts through the cloud, water vapor in the surrounding air begins to cling to its surface, freezing instantly and adding new layers of ice. These additions grow not evenly, but outward from the flake's 6 points, splitting into branches and sub-branches, each echoing the same basic pattern. The snowflake becomes larger, more complex, yet still impossibly light. It is shaped by the conditions of the moment. A slightly colder layer of air may cause the branches to become long and thin, while a more humid pocket might make them thicker or more elaborate. The flake carries every one of these conditions etched into its form, like a tiny record of the atmosphere it touched. Imagine this drifting crystal, turning gently as it falls through the cloud. It passes through layers of varying coldness and moisture. Each shift prompts the snowflake to grow differently. No 2 layers are exactly the same, just as no 2 snowflakes are ever the same. Each flake is a testimony to the path it traveled, a frozen map of the sky's subtle changes. If you could hold one in your hand long enough to study it, though it would melt too quickly, for that you would be holding a small biography of its journey, a record of the atmosphere written in ice. As the snowflake grows heavier, gravity begins to pull it downward. The journey becomes a slow descent, not a fall, but a gentle settling through the sky. Snowflakes tumble through the air like feathers, their wide, branching shapes, increasing air resistance and slowing their downward path. Some fall so slowly that their descent can be measured in just a few feet per second, drifting more than falling, gliding through the calm currents of winter. If the air is still, snowflakes can wander from side to side, rising slightly on small upward drafts before continuing downward. In this way, they can linger in the air for long periods, not in a hurry to reach the ground. Snowflakes often collide with each other during their descent. When they touch lightly, they may stick together, forming the delicate clusters you sometimes see resting on a glove or a window. In larger storms, countless flakes join to form clumps that appear softer and more rounded. These clusters change the way snow falls, creating larger, slower flakes that descend in a quiet, drifting curtain. This is the snow that muffles sound, the snow that transforms landscapes into stillness, covering rooftops and fields with a soft blanket that seems to absorb every noise. It is during these moments that the world feels like it is holding its breath, wrapped in a hush that only falling snow can bring. The sound of snowfall, or rather, the absence of it, is one of the most calming sensations in nature. Snowflakes are incredibly delicate, and their complex branching structures trap air between their arms. When snowfall is heavy enough, these countless flakes absorb sound, dampening echoes and softening even the sharpest noises. Footsteps seem muted, voices carry less. The distant hum of the world fades. Even though each snowflake is just a piece of frozen water, together they create a quiet that feels as though the earth itself has quieted in contemplation. This hush is why many people find winter snowfall to be deeply calming, a time when the world seems to slow down along with the sky. The temperature of the air shapes not just the snowflake but the fall itself. In colder, drier air, flakes remain small and powdery, drifting quickly and forming the fine snow that skiers often call champagne snow. In slightly warmer air, the flakes grow larger and wetter, their branches sticking together more easily, falling in thick, heavy clusters. These are the flakes that create the soft, dense snow, perfect for forming snowballs or building snowmen. Each type of snowflake reflects the story of the sky it passed through, each carrying the signature of winter's breath. As the flake continues its descent, it may pass through warmer layers of air that threaten to melt its outer edges. Sometimes this creates rounded or softened shapes, a sign that the flake encountered warmth but did not fully melt. In other moments, a snowflake may melt entirely and refreeze as it falls again into colder air, forming tiny ice pellets or sleet. These transformations remind us that the atmosphere is never uniform. It is a shifting tapestry of temperatures and currents, guiding each snowflake on a path that may change several times before it reaches the ground. When at last the snowflake touches the earth, its journey is complete. It may land on a branch, where it balances delicately, catching the faint glimmer of winter light. It may fall onto a blanket of earlier snow, merging into a growing drift that softens the ground beneath it. Or it may settle on a window pane, where its crystalline form becomes visible for a moment, before it melts into a droplet. The end of its journey is gentle, quiet, and brief, but the path it traveled was intricate and remarkable. A single snowflake is tiny, but millions upon millions falling together transform the world. They cover roads, fields, rooftops, forests, and mountains. They hide imperfections, soften sharp edges, and turn ordinary landscapes into scenes of serene beauty. Snow's silence encourages stillness in us as well, inviting pauses, reflection, and the kind of quiet that feels deep and ancient. Snow reminds us of nature's ability to move slowly, to create beauty one delicate piece at a time. As you allow your breath to flow softly now, imagine yourself drifting like that snowflake, moving gently downward through calm winter air. Picture each moment of descent as an opportunity to let go of the weight you carry, becoming lighter with each breath. The snowflake does not worry about where it will land. It does not rush. It simply follows the currents, allowing the sky to guide its path. You can do the same, letting go of expectations, drifting through this moment with calm acceptance. 6. Fog, as a cloud that came down to earth. Fog is one of the gentlest and most mysterious forms of weather, a quiet visitor that moves with soft intention, wrapping the world in a veil of calm. Unlike clouds that drift high above the ground, fog settles down among us, weaving itself through trees, over fields, across quiet streets, and around the edges of water. It makes the familiar feel distant, and the distant feel impossible to reach. Yet fog is not a different creature from the clouds overhead. It is simply a cloud that has come down to walk across the earth, formed by the same subtle balance of temperature, moisture, and stillness that shapes the sky. As your breathing slows and your thoughts drift into the soft quietness of this moment, imagine the world around you becoming gently blurred, softened at the edges, touched by the cool embrace of fog. Fog begins with moisture in the air, invisible water vapor suspended around us at all times. Even when the sky above is clear, the atmosphere holds subtle traces of water, rising and falling with the rhythm of temperature. During the day, sunlight warms the ground and the air above it. Warm air can hold more moisture, and so the vapor remains invisible, dispersed, weightless. But when night comes, or when cool winds travel across the land, the temperature begins to fall. As the air cools, it can no longer hold as much moisture. The vapor condenses into tiny droplets, forming a suspended layer of cloud at ground level. These droplets are incredibly small, so small that they float easily in the air, drifting without falling. In this way, fog is born from the simple meeting of coolness and moisture, shaped by the quiet shift between day and night. Imagine walking outside just before sunrise. The world is calm, the wind barely a whisper, the sky just beginning to lighten. Cool air settles along the ground, gathering in low places, filling valleys, hollows, and open fields. Moisture begins to condense, first in faint wisps that appear like breath on a mirror, then in thicker patches that spread outward, merging into a soft, continuous layer of fog. The ground disappears into a blanket of white. Trees become silhouettes. The horizon fades. Everything grows quiet as the fog muffles sound, absorbing the sharpness of each noise and letting only softened echoes drift through the air. This is one of fog's quiet gifts, the ability to soothe the world by slowing down the senses. The droplets that make up fog are far smaller than raindrops, far smaller even than the droplets inside a cloud. They are so tiny that they remain suspended indefinitely, drifting with the slightest breeze. Their small size is what creates the hazy, milky appearance of fog. Instead of light passing cleanly through the air, it scatters across millions of droplets, diffusing in soft, gentle directions. Shadows become faint. Colors become muted. A lamp or a window glows with a halo of diffused light, as if its warmth were spreading into the fog itself. This scattering of light is the same phenomenon that makes clouds appear white, but when it happens near the ground, it envelops us in a world that feels more like a dream than a landscape. Fog often forms near bodies of water, lakes, rivers, oceans, places where moisture constantly evaporates into the air. When cool air moves over warm water, the difference in temperature encourages vapor to rise and condense, creating thickness that unfolds across the surface like an exhaled breath. In the early morning, many lakes appear to steam, even though their waters are cold. The warmer moisture rising from the lake meets the colder air above, forming a thin layer of fog that clings to the surface. The effect is peaceful, almost otherworldly, as if the lake is quietly breathing, releasing its warmth into the cool dawn. Sea fog behaves in its own gentle way. When warm, moist air travels over cooler ocean currents, the moisture condenses into droplets, forming a thick blanket of fog that hugs the water. Ships may drift through it for hours, hearing their own horns echo back from a distance, each sound softened and stretched by the fog. For travelers at sea, fog becomes a landscape without shape, a space where the boundaries between ocean and sky blur into a single grey horizon. Even waves lose their sharpness, becoming faint movements in a world made of mist. In valleys and mountain regions, fog can gather and linger for long periods. Cool air sinks into low places, carrying moisture with it. And because the surrounding mountains trap the cold air, the fog remains, sometimes for days. This type of fog moves slowly, curling around rock formations, drifting through forest groves, climbing halfway up slopes before settling again. To stand in such fog is to feel the landscape breathe, to witness air shifting with the softness of silk. The world feels quieter, more intimate, more ancient, as if time itself has slowed down to match the pace of the mist. Sometimes fog develops even when the sky above is clear. This happens when the ground cools rapidly after sunset, releasing warmth into the atmosphere until the air becomes saturated with moisture. This is called radiation fog, a name that sounds scientific and complex, but the process is simple. The earth cools, the air cools, the moisture condenses, fog forms. It often appears first as faint wisps rising from grass or pavement, like thin ribbons drifting upward. Then it thickens, spreading across the land, touching the edges of trees, gathering in hollows. By morning, it may cover everything in silence. Fog reminds us that the world is full of delicate balances. A few degrees of temperature, a little more or less moisture, a shift in the wind, each plays a role in its creation. It forms only when conditions become perfectly still, perfectly aligned, perfectly gentle. In this way, fog is a quiet teacher of patience. It does not rush. It does not announce itself with thunder or lightning. It arrives softly, settling around us like a slow, deep breath. Even animals move differently in fog. Birds glide lower, closer to the ground where visibility improves. Deer and foxes move cautiously, aware that sound travels strangely through fog. Insects remain closer to the warmth of the earth. Nature slows down not because fog is dangerous, but because it changes the world into a realm where distance becomes uncertain and clarity fades. Everything becomes quieter, closer, softer. Fog also leaves delicate touches behind. Dew gathers on spiderwebs, creating tiny necklaces of droplets. Grass glistens with moisture that clings gently to each blade. Tree branches become coated in fine beads of water. Even stones and windows collect droplets that slowly merge and slide downward in thin trails. These traces of fog appear in the first daylight, like faint jewels left behind by the night. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine the fog settling across the landscape of your mind. Let your thoughts soften and blur at the edges, becoming gentle and distant. Let the noise inside you quiet itself naturally, not through force but through the slow settling of mental breath. Fog does not push away the world, it simply softens it. You can do the same now, allowing your inner landscape to grow calm, muted, serene. Tonight, as you rest, picture yourself walking through a fog that moves like a living breath across the earth. Each footstep is cushioned by silence. Each breath feels cool and easy. The horizon fades, but in its place emerges a sense of deep stillness. Fog shows us that clarity is not always necessary. Sometimes it is enough to simply be present within softness. 7. Why wind moves the way it does. Wind is one of the most ancient voices of the earth, a gentle force that has shaped landscapes, carried seeds across continents, sculpted dunes, and whispered through forests for millions of years. It is invisible, yet you can feel it on your skin. It has no shape, yet it can move entire storms. It can arrive softly as a sigh, or gather into great sweeping currents that circle the world. To understand wind is to understand movement itself, the movement of warmth, the movement of air, the movement of the planet breathing. Tonight, as your own breath settles into a slow, steady rhythm, we explore the quiet reasons why wind moves the way it does, following its patient paths across mountains, oceans, and continents. Wind begins with sunlight. Every morning, the sun rises over the earth, warming its surface unevenly. Dark soil absorbs heat quickly. Forests warm more slowly. Water warms slower still, taking in the sun's rays gently and releasing them just as gently at night. These differences create small pockets of warm air and cool air scattered across the landscape. Warm air becomes lighter and begins to rise, drifting upward into the atmosphere like a balloon lifting off the ground. Cooler air moves downward or flows in to take its place. This simple cycle, warm air rising, cool air sinking, is the earliest heartbeat of wind, the quiet origin of currents that will eventually travel far beyond the place where they were born. Imagine standing on a beach at sunrise. The land cools quickly during the night, but the ocean retains its warmth. As dawn begins to brighten the sky, the air above the water rises, forming a gentle column of warm, upward-moving air. Cooler air from the land flows toward the ocean to replace it, creating the soft morning breeze that brushes across your face. This breeze is not random, it is the air's way of finding balance, gently equalizing the temperature between land and sea. In the evening, the process reverses. The land releases its warmth quickly after sunset, becoming cooler than the ocean. Now the air above the sea rises more easily, and cooler air from the water flows toward the land, forming an evening breeze that touches the shore. These daily cycles remind us that wind is simply the atmosphere moving toward equilibrium, taking its time, always adjusting itself. On a larger scale, the same balance unfolds across continents and oceans. Warm air rises near the equator, where sunlight is most direct, creating towering columns of upward-moving air. This rising air spreads outward high in the atmosphere and cools. It eventually descends again at latitudes farther north and south, forming great circulating loops known as cells. These cells guide much of the world's wind patterns, forming the trade winds that have carried ships across oceans for centuries, the westerlies that shape weather in temperate regions, and the polar winds that drift across the cold edges of the world. Earth's rotation also plays a quiet role in shaping wind. As the planet turns beneath the atmosphere, moving air appears to curve, creating spiral patterns in storms and bending the paths of global winds. This effect, known as the Coriolis force, is gentle, subtle, and constant. It shapes the swirling arms of hurricanes. It steers winds across continents. It guides the atmosphere as it flows around mountains, over deserts, and along coastlines. Without Earth's rotation, winds would move directly toward areas of low pressure, straight and simple. But because the world turns, wind becomes graceful, moving in arcs and curves, tracing elegant shapes across the sky. If you've ever watched clouds drift overhead on a calm afternoon, you've witnessed wind in its gentlest form. Even when the ground feels still, the atmosphere is constantly in motion above you, with layers of air gliding at different speeds and directions. Clouds become the only visible hint of this invisible movement. They drift because the wind carries them, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes in long, looping paths that reflect the shifting currents of the sky. These cloud movements show that wind is not a single force, but a tapestry of motions layered over one another, shaped by temperature, geography, and altitude. Mountains create their own winds, as air is forced upward along their slopes. When air climbs a mountain, it cools, releasing moisture and forming clouds or precipitation. As it descends the other side, it warms again, often creating dry, warm winds known in different parts of the world by names like Chinook, Fohn, or Santa Ana. These winds travel quickly but feel strangely gentle, carrying warmth down into valleys that moments before had been cold. They remind us that wind is shaped not only by temperature but by the shape of the land itself, flowing around obstacles, refusing to be still. Forests, plains, and cities each shape wind in their own way. Trees create small, swirling eddies of air as wind passes through branches and leaves. Grassy plains allow wind to move easily, often creating long, steady currents that stretch for miles across open land. Cities, with their buildings and streets, create channels and pockets of stillness where wind speeds change abruptly. Even within a single street, you can feel the wind shift stronger near tall buildings, softer near sheltered corners. These changes are gentle expressions of how wind learns to navigate the world, adapting its path with each obstacle it meets. Above the clouds, far higher than birds or mountaintops, lies the jet stream, a fast-moving river of air that circles the planet. It flows from west to east, guided by differences in temperature between the equator and the poles. This high-altitude wind moves with astonishing speed, yet its presence feels quiet from the ground. It steers storms, influences seasons, and helps guide the movement of weather systems across thousands of miles. In this way, the jet stream acts like the silent conductor of the atmosphere, shaping the rhythms of weather without ever touching the earth directly. Wind also carries stories across the world. Dust from the Sahara can travel thousands of miles across the Atlantic, feeding nutrients into the Amazon rainforest. Seeds drift on breezes, allowing plants to spread their reach. Pollen floats from tree to tree, helping forests grow. Even scents the sharp smell of rain, the sweetness of blossoms, the earthy aroma of soil travel on wind. This movement connects ecosystems that might otherwise remain isolated, weaving together life across continents. The air becomes a messenger, carrying hints of distant places in each passing breeze. The sound of wind tells its own quiet tale. A light breeze rustles leaves with a soft murmur. Stronger winds hum as they move through narrow spaces. Gusts produce patterns of rhythm and tone, each shaped by the landscape they pass through. Even indoors, distant wind can be heard, as a gentle whistle or a faint vibration against windows and walls. These sounds are calming because they are natural, rhythmic, and ancient. They speak of movement without urgency, of change without force. They remind us that the world is always shifting, breathing, flowing, and that we, too, are part of that motion. As you breathe now, think of wind not as a force of disruption, but as a movement toward balance. Wind is patience in motion, the result of the world seeking equilibrium. It rises when it must, slows when it can, and always finds its path. It carries warmth to cold places, coolness to warm places, moisture to dry lands, and clouds to empty skies. It writes invisible patterns across the air, patterns that are only revealed when they move leaves, grasses, or drifting snow. Tonight, let yourself imagine being carried gently by these currents. Picture yourself as light as a leaf, drifting on the softest breeze. Feel your thoughts moving the way wind moves, not rushing, not forcing, but wandering, exploring, adjusting. Let your mind flow around obstacles rather than resisting them. Let your breath deepen, becoming part of the atmosphere's ancient and continuous rhythm. 8. The calm center of a storm. In the heart of the most powerful storms on Earth, where winds roar in great spirals and clouds tower miles into the sky, there lies a place so calm, so quiet, and so serenely still that it seems to belong to another world entirely. This is the eye of a cyclone, the gentle center of a swirling giant. To understand this stillness is to understand that even within nature's greatest force, there is room for peace, a sanctuary carved out by the storm itself. Tonight, as your breathing softens and your thoughts drift like slow-moving clouds, we travel into this mysterious center, discovering why a cyclone makes room for such profound quiet in the midst of such immense power. A cyclone begins with warm ocean water rising into the sky, creating upward currents that build towering clouds. These clouds gather into clusters, feeding on the heat released as water vapor condenses into droplets. This release of heat fuels the storm, causing more air to rise, more clouds to grow, and more energy to build. Eventually, the air must rush inward from all sides to replace the rising currents. And as the Earth rotates, this inward rush begins to spin. Slowly at first, then faster, the storm develops a rotation, forming a swirling system that stretches hundreds of miles across. At the center of this spinning wheel of wind and cloud lies the eye, a place untouched by the violence that surrounds it. The eye forms because the rising air in the middle of the storm creates a column of low pressure. As air rises rapidly, it leaves behind a void that must be filled. Surrounding winds rush inward toward that void, but instead of collapsing into chaos, they curve around it, guided by the planet's rotation, forming the circular wall of clouds known as the eye wall. The eye wall is where the storm's greatest power is concentrated, where winds scream upward, where rain falls in sheets, and where clouds churn with staggering energy. Yet just beyond this ferocity lies a circle of calm. Inside the eye, air sinks gently rather than rising. This downward motion warms the air slightly, drying it out and preventing the formation of clouds. The sinking air acts like a soft hand smoothing the sky, clearing away turbulence and leaving behind stillness. Imagine walking from the chaos of the eye wall into the eye itself. Moments earlier, winds of extraordinary force surrounded you, bending trees, lifting waves, and hurling rain in heavy sheets. But then, suddenly, the world transforms. The wind drops away. The roar fades into silence. The air becomes gentle again, barely stirring. Above you, the sky opens into a circle of blue or pale gray, framed by the towering walls of clouds that look like the edges of a vast stadium. The sun may shine. Birds, confused but unhurt, sometimes return briefly to the air. For a few moments, the world pauses. This brief stillness is one of the most surreal experiences nature offers, a moment of peace, created not despite the storm, but because of it. The calmness of the eye can feel like stepping into a sacred space. It is as if the storm, in all its intensity, creates its own moment of reflection, its own breath, its own center of quiet. The air inside the eye is often warm, carried downward from the upper levels of the storm. This warmth feels gentle against the skin, a stark contrast to the fury just beyond the storm's inner boundary. Raindrops no longer fall. Waves below may still churn, but even the ocean often takes a slower breath beneath the eye, responding to the change in wind. The horizon widens, and the world feels unexpectedly open. It is a space made of pause, a reminder that even forces capable of reshaping coastlines contain a heart of perfect stillness. This stillness does not last forever. Eventually, the far side of the eye wall arrives, bringing the return of powerful winds and heavy rain. Yet the experience of calm remains a testament to the strange balance that exists within the storm. The eye exists because the cyclone itself creates conditions that allow the atmosphere to rest for a moment. Rising air around the center creates a vacuum that draws wind inward, but leaves no room for turbulence at the very core. The sinking air in the eye smooths away clouds and softens movement. Everything inside the eye becomes a gentle counterpoint to the storm's intensity, a natural symmetry that feels almost poetic. If you imagine yourself floating inside the eye, suspended in warm, sinking air, you can picture the walls of the storm rising around you like a spiraling cathedral. These walls are made of clouds that stretch miles into the sky, curving upward in smooth, spiraling layers. Sunlight filters through the gaps, creating delicate glimmers of brightness. The walls move constantly, swirling with motion, yet the air around you remains calm. This juxtaposition, tranquility surrounded by force, creates a sense of timelessness. In the eye, the storm's voice grows quiet, and the world feels suspended between power and peace. Cyclones teach us something profound, that balance can be found even in the most turbulent places. The eye is not a mistake or an exception. It is a natural outcome of the storm's structure. The calm exists because the winds around it are strong. The stillness exists because the surrounding air is rising so quickly. The serenity exists because the storm itself needs a center, a place where the air can sink, where movement can ease, where the atmosphere can briefly rest before continuing its journey. Even in nature's most breathtaking violence, there is a soft point of equilibrium. Tonight, as you breathe slowly, imagine the storm around you as the noise and stress of daily life swirling, rising, moving in every direction, and then imagine yourself stepping gently into the eye, where the noise fades, where the air warms, where clarity opens above you like a blue circle of sky. In this inner space, your thoughts can settle, your breath can deepen, and the world can feel still for a moment. The eye of the storm becomes a symbol of the calm that lies at the center of every challenge, a quiet reminder that even when life seems to turn fiercely around you, there is always a place of peace within. Let your breath sink gently, like the descending air of the eye. Feel the stillness widening around you, making room for rest. There is no need to rush, no need to resist. Simply settle as the eye settles in the heart of the cyclone. 9. Gentle thunder from distant storms. Thunder is often imagined as something fierce, a sudden crack, a deep boom, a trembling pulse in the sky. Yet when a storm drifts far away, when lightning flashes miles beyond the horizon, thunder transforms into something entirely different. It becomes soft, rounded, comforting, a long, low murmur that rolls across the landscape like a slow breath of the earth itself. Tonight, as your body continues to settle into the quiet rhythm of rest, we drift into the peaceful world of distant thunder, exploring how it forms, why it changes as it travels, and why its faraway voice feels so calming to the mind. Thunder begins with lightning, one of the most sudden and powerful events in nature. When lightning forms, the air around it heats to temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, causing the air to expand outward in an explosive wave. This rapid expansion creates vibrations that ripple through the atmosphere. These vibrations are what we call thunder. Up close, thunder can be sharp and startling, its sound cutting through the world with intensity. But as thunder travels away from its source, it begins to stretch, soften, and unravel into something much more gentle. Imagine a lightning bolt striking far across the open plains or deep within a distant valley. The sound it produces does not reach you in a single instant. Instead, it spreads outward in waves, passing over rolling hills, through layers of air, around forests, and across open fields. Each surface it encounters reflects, absorbs, and bends the sound, reshaping it until it becomes a long, continuous rumble. The sharper high-frequency sounds fade first as they are scattered or absorbed by the atmosphere. What remains are the deeper, slower vibrations, the ones that feel more like a tremor than a sound. These low tones can travel for miles, drifting toward you with the softness of a slow-moving tide. Picture yourself listening to thunder from inside a quiet room or beneath the shelter of a porch. The rain may have passed, or perhaps it has not yet arrived. You hear a distant roll, as though the sky were clearing its throat. There is no urgency in the sound, no jarring crack. It is simply a low, drifting vibration that moves through the air with patience. This is distant thunder, a reminder of the weather unfolding far away, a soft echo of energy being released somewhere beyond sight. The storm is not near enough to trouble you, only near enough to be heard like a memory, a fading impression carried to you through the sky. The way thunder softens as it travels is similar to the way water smooths a pebble over time. The atmosphere shapes the sound, smoothing its edges until it loses all suddenness. Just as fog softens the outlines of the world, distance softens the voice of a storm. The rumble that reaches you is the sky speaking in slow motion, stretched by miles of air, bent by layers of wind, filtered through moisture and temperature. This transformation is why distant thunder is often described as soothing. It becomes not a warning, but a lullaby, sung by the horizon. Sometimes distant thunder arrives in layers, one gentle roll followed by another, each quieter and slower than the last. This happens because sound moves at different speeds, depending on the temperature and density of the air. In warm air near the ground, sound can travel quickly, while in cooler layers above, it may bend or refract, changing direction. These layers can cause thunder to arrive in soft pulses, as if each roll were a separate wave washing onto a quiet shore. Listening to this layered rumble can feel like listening to the earth breathe, each roll a slow exhalation fading into the vastness of the sky. In the evening, when the world cools, the sound of distant thunder often travels farther. The cooler air near the ground creates a kind of gentle acoustic tunnel, allowing the vibrations to flow more smoothly. That is why you might hear thunder on a warm summer evening even when the storm is many miles away. The sound glides effortlessly along the surface of the earth, following the contours of hills and fields, moving with the ease of a melody carried on a breeze. In these moments, distant thunder becomes part of the night's soundscape, no louder than the chirping of crickets or the rustle of leaves. Thunder can also echo across mountains, traveling along ridges and valleys in long, rolling booms. If you have ever been in a mountainous region during a storm, you may have heard thunder repeat itself, bouncing from one slope to another. Each echo becomes softer, more stretched, more atmospheric, until it fades into silence. Even after the lightning has passed, the sound lingers like a final whisper, a reminder that storms, like all things, leave behind small traces of their presence before they disappear. There is something deeply grounding about hearing thunder from afar. It reminds us that the world is vast, that weather unfolds in countless places at once, and that nature's movements are larger than our immediate surroundings. Listening to distant thunder can make you feel connected to distant hills, faraway clouds, or unseen landscapes where the storm travels. You might imagine the rain falling on open fields, the wind bending tall grass, the lightning illuminating a patch of sky you cannot see. Thunder becomes a bridge, linking your quiet moment with the restless sky miles away. The emotional response to distant thunder is also shaped by the rhythm of the sound. Humans naturally find comfort in slow, low-frequency vibrations, the same kind that come from waves, heartbeats, wind, and the rustling of forests. These sounds signal safety, continuity, and familiarity. They reassure the body at a biological level. When thunder becomes deep and distant, its remaining tones fall into this comforting range. The storm becomes something you can feel rather than fear, something that settles into the background of your awareness like a gentle, rolling drum. As you breathe now, imagine letting each exhale drift outward like a wave of thunder moving across the sky. Let each inhale draw in the calm that follows the sound. Picture the storm far away, its lightning illuminating clouds that rise like soft mountains. See the thunder rolling downward along the horizon, spreading gently until its rumble reaches you as nothing more than a whisper of vibration. The storm is not close. It is a distant thought, a soft presence, a reminder that even powerful forces can move with tenderness when given enough space. The air around you grows quieter as the rumble fades. This is the rhythm of distant thunder presence followed by stillness, energy followed by calm. You can let your mind follow the same rhythm, releasing tension with each passing roll, settling deeper into the peaceful space that follows. Thunder teaches us that even loud moments soften with distance, that intensity melts into gentleness when given room to travel, and that time itself quiets all storms. Allow your body to rest in this softness now, feeling the echo of a storm that never touches you. Feel the comfort of being sheltered, safe, and still. The sky is speaking far away, but your world is quiet. Hold that quietness within you. 10. The quiet science of rainbows. A rainbow is one of nature's softest surprises, a moment when the sky reveals its hidden colors with a gentle arch of light. It appears most often after rain, when the air still feels cool against the skin and droplets glisten on leaves and windows. There is no sound when a rainbow forms, no sudden shift, no dramatic arrival. Instead, it simply appears when conditions are right, glowing quietly in the atmosphere like a whispered secret between the sun and the rain. Tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts settle like mist on calm water, we drift into the peaceful science behind rainbows, how they form, why they curve, and why their colors feel so comforting to the eyes. A rainbow begins with sunlight, a beam of white light containing every color imaginable. Most of the time, these colors stay hidden, blended so perfectly that they appear as a single bright glow. But when sunlight meets falling raindrops in just the right way, the hidden spectrum begins to unfold. The raindrop becomes a tiny prism, bending and splitting the light inside it, revealing the colors that were always there but invisible. This transformation is quiet, almost delicate, a ballet of light and water happening simultaneously in millions of droplets suspended in the air. Each raindrop plays its own small role. When a ray of sunlight enters a droplet, it slows down because water is denser than air. This slowing causes the light to bend slightly, an effect known as refraction. Inside the droplet, the light reflects off the inner surface, bouncing back toward the sky. As it exits the droplet, the light bends again, splitting into its component colors. Long wavelengths, like red, emerge at a slightly different angle than shorter wavelengths, like violet. This subtle difference creates the separation of colors, red on the outer edge, violet on the inner, arranged in a graceful gradient that arches across the sky. Imagine millions of raindrops suspended in the air after a shower, each one bending and reflecting sunlight in its own gentle way. You see a rainbow because thousands of those droplets send their refracted colors toward your eyes at just the right angle. But another person standing only a few steps away sees their own version of the rainbow, made from different droplets, each aligned to their individual position. No two people see the same exact rainbow. The arc that glows before you is uniquely yours, a personal moment of light shaped by where you stand in the world. The rainbow's curve is not truly a simple arch. It is part of a full circle, a ring of light centered on the shadow of your head. But the ground blocks the bottom half of the circle, leaving only the upper arc visible. From an aeroplane or a mountain top, people sometimes see the whole circle glowing beneath them. reminding us that rainbows are not truly half-formed pictures but entire halos of refracted light. Their shape is the result of simple geometry, born from the angle at which light leaves each droplet and returns to the viewer. This angle, typically around 42 degrees for red light, is constant, meaning the rainbow always forms at the same distance from your perspective, no matter where you are. Even though rainbows feel gentle and ephemeral, the physics behind them is precise and intricate. The lower colors, like violet and indigo, bend more strongly as they exit the droplet, while the longer wavelengths, like red, bend less. This is why the red band appears on the outer edge and the violet on the inner. The colors blend softly where wavelengths overlap, creating the smooth gradient that feels so peaceful to the eye. Our brains interpret color transitions that flow in gentle, continuous ways as soothing, which is part of why rainbows seem to calm the mind, inviting reflection and stillness. Sometimes a second, fainter rainbow appears outside the primary arc. This is called a double rainbow, and it forms when light reflects twice inside a raindrop before emerging. Each additional reflection reverses the order of the colors, causing the secondary rainbow to have red on the inside and violet on the outside. Because the light scatters more with each reflection, the second rainbow is dimmer, more diffuse, and often wider than the first. This subtle echo of the primary arc feels like a shy companion, a softer, quieter version of the brighter rainbow beside it. Rainbows can appear in other forms as well. Fogbows, for instance, occur when sunlight interacts not with raindrops, but with tiny droplets suspended in fog. These droplets are smaller and scatter light differently, producing a rainbow so faint and pale that it often appears white. A fogbow is like a ghost of a rainbow, a soft, barely visible arc that feels more like a whisper than a statement. In the presence of thicker fog, the bow can be so subtle that it seems to float in the air like a suggestion rather than a defined shape. Sometimes rainbows appear at night, illuminated by moonlight instead of sunlight. These moonbows are rare and often too faint to show strong colors, appearing instead as pale, silvery arcs. Yet the process is the same. Moonlight enters droplets, refracts, reflects, and bends into a spectrum. To see one is to witness the nighttime sky quietly painting itself with the same delicate physics that shape the daytime world. A moonbow reminds us that the sky continues its hidden artistry even while the world sleeps. Rainbows also form in the spray of waterfalls, the mist of fountains, and the fine droplets drifting off ocean waves. Anywhere water meets light at the right angle, color reveals itself. If you stand with your back to the sun near a waterfall, you may notice a rainbow glowing in the mist at your feet, flickering as the droplets swirl. In these moments, the rainbow feels intimate, small enough to touch, created not by the entire sky, but by the droplets closest to you. The experience is personal, a gentle reminder that beauty often arises from the simplest interactions. The appearance of a rainbow feels peaceful, because it arrives only when the storm has softened. It is a sign that rain is passing, or lingering lightly, that sunlight has returned, that the sky has begun to clear. The world becomes quiet after rain. Leaves drip softly, the air cools, the ground glistens. A rainbow appears in this transition, a bridge between the intensity of the storm and the calm that follows. It carries within it the message that moments of turbulence can give way to color, that light can emerge from droplets shaped only moments ago by falling rain. As you breathe now, imagine sunlight filtering through raindrops, splitting into gentle colors that curve across your inner landscape. Picture the red, the orange, the yellow, and the green, blending seamlessly into the blues and violets. Let each color wash through your thoughts like a soft brushstroke, Rainbows are calm because they remind us that beauty does not force its way into the world. It emerges naturally when conditions align, when light meets water in harmony, when the storm eases and the sun returns. Let yourself rest inside that harmony now. Allow the colors of the rainbow to drift through you, gentle and continuous, calming your mind with their softness. The physics of the rainbow is precise, but its feeling is timeless, a moment of quiet clarity painted across the sky. 11. The whisper of falling snow. Snow has a way of transforming sound, softening the sharpness of the world until everything feels hushed and far away. When flakes drift from a cold, pale sky, they bring with them a quiet, unlike any other, a quiet thick enough to feel, deep enough to settle inside the body like a long, slow breath. The whisper of falling snow is not a sound in the usual sense. It is the gentle absence of sound, the soft muting of the world as millions of tiny crystals descend through the air. Tonight, as you allow your breathing to grow softer, imagine the sky releasing its quietness, one snowflake at a time, drifting down to settle gently across the earth. Snow begins its descent high in the atmosphere, where moisture freezes into delicate crystals of ice. These crystals grow in patterns shaped by temperature, humidity, and motion, forming the hexagonal architecture that defines every snowflake. As we explored in their journey earlier, each flake is intricate and unique, branching into shapes both simple and ornate. But once a snowflake finishes its formation and begins drifting downward, its interaction with the world changes. Instead of growing, it becomes a traveling hush, a mobile instrument of quiet, shaping the landscape not only by covering it, but by softening the sounds that reach your ears. The reason snowfall creates such a profound quiet has to do with the very structure of snowflakes. Each flake is made of delicate arms and branching crystals that form tiny pockets of air. When snow falls to the ground and accumulates, these pockets create a layer of snow that is incredibly porous. Sound waves, which normally bounce off hard surfaces, become trapped within these tiny spaces. Instead of reflecting sharply, they are absorbed, weakened, and scattered. The result is a world where footsteps are muffled, voices seem farther away, and distant sounds fade quickly into the whiteness. Imagine walking outside during a gentle snowfall. The world around you feels subdued. Your footsteps leave soft impressions in the fresh snow, but the sound is cushioned, barely audible. Trees hold the snow on their branches like cotton, their usual rustling replaced with stillness. Even the air feels quieter, as though the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. This quiet is not emptiness. It is fullness, a soothing, enveloping presence that settles on everything. When snow is falling heavily, the quiet becomes even deeper. The flakes drift through the air with a softness that absorbs noise before it can even reach the ground. Each flake interrupts the movement of sound waves, scattering them in countless directions. If you listen closely during such a snowfall, you may notice the faintest whispering sound. Not the sound of the snowflakes hitting the ground, but the sound of them moving through the air, brushing gently against one another as they fall. This whisper is incredibly subtle, almost imperceptible, like the sound of breath through a winter scarf or the softest rustle of paper. Many people describe it not as a sound, but as a sensation, something felt more than heard. The world under snowfall feels different, not just because of its quietness, but because of the way snow transforms light. When fresh snow covers the land, it acts like a mirror, reflecting most of the light that touches it. This reflected light brightens the surroundings, even on cloudy days, creating a gentle, diffuse glow. During snowfall, the sky and ground often share the same soft color, blending horizon and earth into a single, continuous brightness. This visual softness works with the auditory quiet to create a sense of peace, as though the boundaries of the world have blurred into a gentle haze. Nighttime snowfalls are especially calming. Streetlights form halos in the snowy air, each flake drifting through the circle of light before disappearing again into darkness. The world feels slowed, muted, and insulated from the usual noises of life. Cars move more slowly, their sounds dampened. Trees stand quietly, their branches heavy with white. Even the wind seems quieter, as if softened by the falling flakes. This combination of visual glow and muffled sound creates a tranquil atmosphere that feels timeless, as though the night has paused to let the snow speak in silence. One of the most comforting aspects of snowfall is the way it encourages stillness in the natural world. Animals retreat to their dens or move gently through the whitened landscape, their footsteps disappearing almost as soon as they are made. Birds perch quietly on branches, conserving warmth. Even rivers and streams seem softer as snow gathers along their edges, absorbing some of the noise of rushing water. The entire ecosystem enters a kind of temporary meditation, mirroring the snow's serene descent. Snow also affects the internal landscape of the mind. Humans naturally respond to softer sensory input with relaxation. The muted sounds and gentle visuals of snowfall slow down perception, allowing thoughts to settle like flakes on a calm surface. Many people report feeling calmer, more reflective, and more peaceful during snowfall. This is not simply an emotional reaction, it is a physiological one. The brain, receiving fewer sharp sounds and fewer visual contrasts, finds itself in a quieter state. The mind mirrors the environment. Imagine now that you are standing in a field or a quiet street as snow begins to fall. The first flakes drift lightly, landing on your coat and melting softly. More snow follows, descending in a steady rhythm that feels almost musical in its silence. The air seems to thicken, not with weight but with softness. Your breath mingles with the snowy air, forming faint wisps that disappear almost instantly. The world around you feels slower, gentler, wrapped in a blanket of quiet. As the snowfall deepens, the ground begins to transform. Hard surfaces become soft, edges disappear. The landscape becomes a landscape of curves and gentle slopes. This transformation creates an emotional softness as well, inviting you to release tension and let your thoughts settle. Snow teaches us that even the hardest surfaces can be softened. Even the sharpest edges can be rounded. Even the loudest environments can become quiet. Snow also carries a sense of renewal. When it covers the ground, it creates a fresh, unmarked surface that seems to invite new beginnings. Footprints appear briefly before being filled again by drifting flakes. Roads and fields look untouched. The world feels refreshed. This visual resetting has a calming effect on the mind, encouraging restfulness and the release of old worries, just as the snow releases its flakes gently onto the earth. As you breathe now, imagine the snow continuing to fall, slow and steady, layer upon layer of quiet. Feel the softness spreading outward from your thoughts, covering any remaining noise within you. Let the hush of the snowfall settle into your body, relaxing your shoulders, softening your breath, calming your mind. The snow does not rush. It does not force its way to the ground. It allows gravity to guide it, drifting, floating, settling softly. Tonight, let yourself do the same. Drift gently downward into rest, following the slow movement of the snowflakes. Release any noise within you, the way the world releases sound during snowfall. Become quiet, peaceful, still. 12 Dew, the night's soft gift to morning. Dew is one of the gentlest forms of water on earth, arriving without sound, without motion, and without the drama of storms or rain. It forms quietly in the tender hours between night and dawn, settling across the world like a soft exhale from the sky. Dew does not fall from above. It appears as if by magic, like a whisper from the darkness, coating blades of grass, petals of flowers, and surfaces of stones with tiny jewels of moisture. These droplets glisten in the early light, shimmering like tiny mirrors of the waking sun. Tonight, as your breath softens and your thoughts begin to settle into calmness, we drift into the peaceful science of dew, how it forms, why it arrives when the world sleeps, and why its presence feels like the earth's gentle greeting to morning. Dew begins with the cooling of the air. During the day, sunlight warms the ground, the leaves, the soil, and the surfaces of everything around you. These surfaces then warm the air immediately above them, causing moisture to remain suspended as invisible vapor. But as evening approaches and the sun sinks below the horizon, warmth slowly escapes from the earth. The ground releases its heat upward, cooling the air that hugs its surface. As this air cools, it loses its ability to hold moisture. At a certain temperature called the dew point, the vapor begins to condense into water droplets. These droplets settle onto whatever surface they touch, forming the fine beading we call dew. This process is delicate, unfolding quietly as the world drifts into sleep. No wind is necessary. No clouds are involved. The only requirement is stillness, a gentle cooling that invites moisture out of the air and onto the world. In this sense, dew reflects the soft rhythm of nighttime, the slow letting go of heat, the calm transition into rest. Dew is the sky relaxing, the air relaxing, the earth relaxing. It is nature's way of slowing down, drop by tiny drop. Imagine walking outside just before dawn, when the world is still in its final moments of darkness. The grass beneath your feet feels cool and slightly damp. Each blade holds a delicate bead of water at its tip, so small that it moves only with the slightest disturbance. Flowers wear droplets like morning jewels. Spiderwebs, hidden during the day, now glisten like silver nets, every strand lined with tiny spheres that reflect the first hints of light. Dew reveals the invisible world, the webbing of insects, the contours of leaves, the smallest textures of bark and stone. It highlights details we overlook, offering a gentle reminder that the simplest things can become extraordinary when touched by moisture and light. The formation of dew is closely tied to calmness. If the night is windy, the moving air keeps temperatures more even, preventing the surfaces from cooling enough to reach the dew point. If clouds linger overnight, they act like a blanket, reflecting heat back toward the ground and slowing the cooling process. Dew forms best on clear, still nights, the same kind of nights that feel peaceful and open, when the stars shimmer in quiet constellations and the air seems to hold its breath. The presence of dew in the morning tells you that the night was serene, that the world cooled gently and evenly, without interruption. Dew has a unique touch. When it gathers on surfaces, it forms perfect spheres, tiny droplets shaped by surface tension. These droplets hold onto blades of grass or petals of flowers with delicate precision, forming shapes so small and intricate that they seem designed rather than accidental. When sunlight touches them, the droplets act as miniature lenses, refracting and bending light into soft glimmers. This sparkling is one of the quietest forms of beauty in nature, the glitter of dew announcing morning long before the world fully wakes. If you lie close to the ground in the early hours, you might notice how dew seems to fall more heavily on some surfaces than others. Smooth surfaces cool more quickly and gather more dew. Rough surfaces trap heat and gather less. Metal often cools enough to accumulate thick droplets, while wood may retain warmth, collecting only a faint sheen. Plants, with their thin leaves and delicate edges, become perfect canvases for dew. Their shapes are ideal for catching droplets at their tips, forming beads that cling until the morning breeze brushes them free. Dew also carries subtle scents. When moisture settles on the earth, it awakens the smell of soil, leaves, and grass. Even in the first moments of morning, before the sun has risen, there is a gentle freshness in the air, a cool, earthy aroma that signals the start of a new day. This scent is partly caused by the release of compounds from soil and plants when they encounter moisture. Dew, though soft and silent, activates the landscape, bringing forward the quiet perfume of morning. In many ecosystems, dew is essential. In deserts where rain is rare, certain plants and animals rely on dew as their primary source of hydration. Plants have evolved tiny hairs or specialized surfaces that draw moisture from the air and guide dew droplets toward their roots. Desert beetles tilt their bodies to capture dew on their backs, letting the water roll into their mouths. Even in lush regions, dew offers hydration during dry spells, nourishing leaves and keeping ground-level vegetation alive. The gentle arrival of dew is part of a cycle far older than human history, a nightly gift from air to earth. Dew also influences temperature, helping regulate the warmth of the ground. When dew forms, it releases a small amount of heat, a natural consequence of condensation. This release slows the rate at which the ground cools, protecting plants from frost during mild nights. On nights when the air is just cold enough to threaten freezing, dew can be the difference between survival and harm for delicate vegetation. Nature, in its quiet wisdom, allows dew to act as a protective blanket, a subtle guardian formed through the simplest molecules. As morning arrives and sunlight grows stronger, dew begins to evaporate. The tiny droplets shine with momentary brilliance, then fade as they return to the air. This transition is as gentle as their formation, a release back into vapor, a gradual disappearance. The world slowly dries, leaving behind only the memory of the night's tenderness. Dew vanishes almost as quietly as it appeared, offering a reminder that some of nature's most beautiful moments are also the most fleeting. Imagine now that you are standing in a calm morning meadow. The sun is rising slowly, casting warm, golden light across the dew-covered grass. The droplets catch the light and shimmer softly, like tiny stars scattered across the earth. There is no rush in this moment. The air is cool, the world is quiet. The dew glistens for a few final breaths before fading into warmth. This is the atmosphere. Dew creates a world that feels renewed, softened, freshened by the night. As you breathe gently, imagine the dew forming across the landscape of your thoughts. Let each droplet symbolize clarity, cooling, and calming your mind. The night within you releases its warmth, settling into stillness. Tensions condense and fall away, leaving a clean surface behind. You become like the earth in early morning, quiet, refreshed, open to softness. Dew teaches us that renewal can happen quietly, that rest can bring clarity, that softness can restore. Allow yourself to rest like the world before dawn, letting the dew of stillness settle within you. Feel the cool calm spreading across your thoughts, gathering gently, peacefully, without urgency. 13. Why the air feels different before rain. There is a moment before rainfall when the world seems to pause, when the wind slows, the light softens, and the air around you changes in a way that feels both familiar and ancient. You may notice a certain scent, subtle yet unmistakable, earthy, cool, and quietly refreshing, like the breath of soil awakening. Or you might feel a heaviness in the atmosphere, a stillness that settles over the landscape. This calm, expectant feeling is one of nature's gentlest signals, a whisper that rain is on its way. Tonight, as your breathing deepens and your thoughts drift like soft clouds across a dimming sky, we explore the peaceful science behind that sensation, why the air feels different before rain, and how the world prepares for the gift of falling water. The first reason the air feels different before a storm lies deep within the earth itself. When raindrops begin to fall on dry soil, they release organic compounds that have been resting in the ground for days, weeks, or even months. One of these compounds, called geosmin, is produced by tiny soil-dwelling bacteria. Geosmin is what gives healthy soil its characteristic earthy scent. When the first raindrops land, they strike the dry ground with just enough force to push tiny air bubbles upward. These bubbles burst, releasing geosmin into the air. Even before the rain fully begins, a faint breeze can carry this aroma toward you, allowing your senses to recognize the coming change. This smell has a name, petrichor. It comes from Greek, meaning the blood of the stone, a poetic description of the scent released when rain touches dry earth. Petrichor is incredibly calming, in part because it connects us with something ancient and grounding. Our ancestors relied on the arrival of rain for life and growth, and the scent of petrichor quietly signaled nourishment and renewal. Even now, when we smell that earthy perfume, a deep part of the mind relaxes, recognizing that water, a source of life, is returning to the land. A second contributor to the pre-rain atmosphere is the presence of ozone, a molecule created high in the atmosphere during electrical storms. When lightning forms, it splits nitrogen and oxygen molecules, allowing them to recombine into ozone. This ozone can be carried down to the ground by downdrafts ahead of a storm. Its scent is sharper and cooler than petrichor, not earthy, but fresh, almost metallic, like the air near a waterfall or the ocean. When these downdrafts reach you, they bring with them the unmistakable smell of electricity, a gentle clue that distant lightning is preparing the sky for rain. But even the air itself feels different before rainfall. If you step outside moments before a shower begins, you may notice that the wind slows or becomes still. This stillness is part of a beautiful dance between temperature, pressure, and moisture. As a storm system approaches, the air ahead of it is often pulled upward into towering clouds. Warm, moist air rises into the storm, leaving the ground-level air calmer and cooler. This creates pockets of stillness, moments when the leaves hardly move and the world feels suspended in time. The sky may darken slightly as the sun's light filters through thickening clouds. Shadows soften, colors deepen. The atmosphere feels close, as if the world is wrapping itself gently around you. Humidity also plays a quiet role. Before rain, the air grows wetter, filled with moisture that has been gathering inside the approaching storm. This moisture softens the air's texture, making your skin more aware of the atmosphere around you. Breathing feels slightly different, slower, fuller, more noticeable. Even sound seems to change. High humidity can make distant noises feel muted, and nearby ones feel sharper, creating an unusual sense of closeness and distance at once. It is as though the air is thickening, preparing to release its burden in the form of falling rain. If thunderclouds begin to form, their shadows create cool pockets of air near the ground. This coolness mixes with warmer air rising from the earth, creating subtle shifts in temperature that you can feel without realizing why. A gentle drop in temperature may brush your skin moments before the first raindrop arrives. Animals sense this change deeply. Birds often grow quiet. Insects retreat. Leaves turn their undersides upward as they respond to humidity and wind shifts. Nature listens to the approach of rain in a way that humans once learned to do instinctively. Another contributor to the pre-rain feeling is the change in pressure. As a storm system approaches, atmospheric pressure drops. This drop can subtly affect the human body, particularly the sinuses and skin. Some people feel a faint tingling, a slight fullness in the head, or a sense of heaviness in the air. These sensations are gentle cues that the atmosphere is shifting, that the sky is preparing to release its stored water. The body, in its quiet wisdom, interprets these atmospheric changes long before the first drop falls. Imagine standing outside on a still day. As clouds gather overhead, the world seems to dim, not suddenly, but gradually, as if the sky is lowering a thin veil of grey. The air around you becomes cool and damp. The scent of earth rises softly, carried by a breeze so gentle it barely stirs the leaves. There is no urgency in this moment, only a sense of anticipation, a slow unfolding. You feel the heaviness of moisture, the calm of the wind, the faint electricity in the air. Each sensation is a quiet step in nature's preparation for rain. Sometimes, the pre-rain world feels almost meditative. The horizon softens as humidity blurs the distance. The sound of the environment becomes muted. Even light seems to exhale, releasing its sharpness and settling into shades of blue and grey. The air feels cool on your skin, yet the world feels warm beneath the surface, as if holding on to the last breath of sunlight before the first drop falls. This moment is its own kind of peace, a pause between what was and what will be. When the first raindrop finally lands, it often feels like a gentle punctuation mark, a single touch that signals the beginning of a larger release. And yet, even in its arrival, rain begins softly, testing the world with a few exploratory drops. The air responds by releasing more petrichor, more ozone, more quietness. Soon the land is ready, the sky is ready, and the rain falls in a steady rhythm that feels like a lullaby for the earth. As you breathe now, imagine inhaling that pre-rain scent, the coolness of ozone, the earthiness of petrichor, the softness of moisture. Feel the calmness of the air just before a storm, the gentle weight of humidity, the serene hush that settles across the world. Let that stillness enter your body, relaxing your shoulders, slowing your thoughts. The air before rain teaches us that change can arrive gently, that transitions can be soft, that the world can prepare for transformation with quiet grace. Tonight, let yourself settle into that same softness. Feel the calm before the rain within you, the sense of quiet anticipation, the peaceful heaviness, the comforting scent of something new approaching. Rest in that moment. Breathe in its coolness. Exhale into its ease. 14. The slow drift of weather across continents. Weather is never still. Even on the calmest days, when the air feels quiet and the sky appears untouched, the atmosphere is always moving in ways too soft and too vast for us to notice. Winds curl around mountains. Clouds travel in long, winding paths. Moisture rises and falls in endless cycles. And above all of this, great streams of air carry weather systems across continents, like slow-moving travelers on ancient routes. Tonight, as your breath lengthens and your thoughts drift like distant clouds, we explore the gentle wandering of weather, how it moves across the world with patience, with purpose, and with the quiet persistence of time itself. Weather systems form when air masses with different temperatures, moisture levels, and densities begin to interact. Warm air spreads outward from sunlit oceans. Cold air descends from the poles. Dry air travels over deserts. Moist air rises from forests and lakes. These air masses move not in abrupt leaps, but in slow, sweeping motions guided by the rotation of the earth, the warmth of the sun, and the shape of the land below. They drift across thousands of miles in large, gentle arcs, carrying with them the stories of the places they have touched. Imagine a warm air mass forming over the equatorial ocean. Sunlight pours into the water, heating it from above and below, causing moisture to rise into the air with soft intention. This air grows warm and buoyant, lifting into the sky and drifting northward or southward, carried by global winds. As it travels, it brings with it humidity, warmth, and the scent of the sea. The air cools gradually as it moves into higher latitudes, losing some of its moisture along the way, releasing it as rain over distant lands. This warm, ocean-borne air may eventually reach places thousands of miles from where its journey began, its character shaped by winds, geography, and time. Now imagine a cold air mass forming near the Arctic. The air sinks over the icy surface, becoming dense, dry, and sharp as it gathers the quiet chill of the polar night. This air, heavy with cold, begins to drift southward. It moves slowly, like a deep, steady breath exhaled by the poles, crossing tundras, forests, and plains. As it moves, it reshapes the weather around it, bringing frost to fields, stillness to forests, and crystalline clarity to the air. By the time this cold air reaches temperate regions, it has carried with it the essence of the far north, the whisper of ice, the quiet of winter, the patience of long nights. These wandering air masses do not stay separate. They meet each other, blend, push, and pull, creating fronts where warm air rises above cool air, forming long bands of clouds and gentle rain. At these boundaries, weather becomes active, but even then, the activity is part of a larger, slower dance. The front itself may travel for hundreds of miles, its clouds stretching across horizons, its rain falling in long, meandering patterns. This movement takes days, sometimes weeks, as the atmosphere carefully redistributes energy and moisture across the world. High above the surface, powerful rivers of air, known as jet streams, weave through the sky. These streams flow from west to east, shaping the paths of storms and guiding weather systems around the globe. The jet stream moves quickly, but the systems it steers drift slowly beneath it, like leaves carried along the surface of a river. These atmospheric rivers help distribute heat from the equator toward the poles, and cold air from the poles toward the equator. Without them, weather would stagnate, climates would grow more extreme, and the gentle variability that defines our seasons would fade. The jet stream bends and curves, creating broad troughs where cold air dips southward and ridges where warm air surges northward. These shapes determine whether a region experiences warmth or coolness, clear skies or rain. Even small shifts in the jet stream's path can change the weather for entire continents. Yet these shifts happen slowly, over days and weeks, moving with the steady patience of the sky. Weather does not leap across the world, it drifts. Imagine continental rain systems moving across the land. A low-pressure system may form over the ocean, drawing moist air into its circulation. Clouds gather, spiral gently, and begin to move inland. The rain falls for hours or even days as the system drifts across mountains, plains, and forests. Beneath it, rivers swell, soil drinks deeply, and leaves glisten with moisture. The system may weaken as it crosses mountain ranges, then strengthen again when it meets warm, humid air on the other side. Its journey is unhurried, guided by both the landscape and the winds above. Weather systems that travel over mountains change dramatically. When moist air rises along mountain slopes, it cools and forms clouds, releasing rain or snow on the windward side. By the time the air descends on the other side, much of the moisture has fallen away, leaving the air dry and warm. This phenomenon creates rain shadows, regions sheltered from rainfall by mountains. These areas, despite being close to wet, forested slopes, receive very little precipitation. The difference between these two sides of the mountain is created by nothing more than the slow drift of weather and the way the land gently nudges air upward or downward. Over deserts, weather systems move differently. Dry air masses resist forming clouds, so the sky remains vast and clear. Yet even here, the atmosphere is not still. Hot air rises during the day, drawing in air from cooler regions. At night, the desert cools quickly, creating gentle flows of air in the opposite direction. Over days and weeks, these patterns guide dust, heat, and moisture across great distances. Dust from the Sahara, lifted by hot winds, can drift across the Atlantic, feeding the soil of distant rainforests. Weather's movements tie far-flung ecosystems together, connecting places that seem worlds apart. Over oceans, weather becomes deeply rhythmic. Waves of high and low pressure drift slowly across the water, guided by temperature differences between sea and sky. Storms form and fade. Warm ocean currents carry heat northward. Cold currents sink southward. The atmosphere responds to these changes, forming clouds and winds that drift in long cycles. These cycles regulate global climate, distributing energy in patterns that have remained steady for millions of years. The slow drift of weather also shapes our experience of time. The arrival of a cold front suggests the coming of winter. A warm, humid southerly wind hints at spring. A long, dry breeze from inland may signal the height of summer. We sense these changes not because weather moves abruptly, but because it moves gradually, allowing us to feel the transition as it unfolds. Weather is one of the oldest rhythms we know, older than calendars, older than clocks, older than history. As you breathe now, imagine yourself drifting with these weather systems. Picture yourself as light as a cloud, carried gently by the winds, moving across mountains and oceans with quiet ease. Feel the slow shift between warm and cool air, between stillness and motion. Let your mind drift with the atmosphere, unhurried and spacious. Weather reminds us that change does not need to be rapid or dramatic. It can unfold softly, steadily, over time, a long, slow journey across the sky. Allow yourself to relax into that same slow drift. Let your thoughts move gently, carried by the calm currents of your breath. Feel the peace of the atmosphere settling around you, the quiet movement of air that never stops but never rushes. Rest in its rhythm. 15. The subtle dance of warm and cold air. The atmosphere is a place of gentle contrasts, a realm where warm air and cold air meet, mingle, and move around each other in slow, graceful patterns. These differences in temperature shape nearly everything we experience, as whether the formation of clouds, the rise of storms, the fall of rain, and the shifting of winds across continents. Yet, despite their influence, the interaction between warm and cold air often unfolds quietly, invisibly, like a soft choreography playing out high above our heads. Tonight, as your breath deepens and your thoughts drift like currents through the sky, we explore this subtle dance, the tender meeting of warm and cold, and the peaceful transitions that give rise to clouds. Warm air and cold air behave differently because of their density. Warm air expands, becoming lighter, and tends to rise. Cold air contracts, becoming heavier, and tends to sink. This upward and downward movement is not abrupt. It unfolds as slowly as a tide, a gentle shifting of the atmosphere as it seeks balance. When warm air rises, it carries moisture upward from oceans, lakes, forests, and fields. As it ascends, the air cools, and the moisture begins to condense into clouds. But when cold air moves downward or flows beneath warm air, it reshapes the sky in equally subtle ways. These opposing motions create boundaries called fronts, quiet lines in the atmosphere, where warm and cold air meet in delicate equilibrium. Imagine a warm air mass approaching a region of colder air. The warm air cannot push the cold air away with force. Instead, it lifts gracefully above it, gliding upward along a gentle slope. This rising creates long stretches of cloud, smooth, layered formations that often appear before a steady rain. The warm air, carrying its moisture upward, condenses slowly, forming clouds that spread across the sky like soft blankets. Nothing about this process is rushed. The clouds form gradually, their edges blurring into one another until the entire sky becomes a canvas of gray, calm, and continuous. Now imagine the opposite cold air advancing toward a region of warm air. Because cold air is denser, it slides beneath the warm air, lifting it sharply. This lifting can create taller, more dramatic clouds, filled with rising currents that swirl and billow as the warm air ascends quickly. Yet even this seemingly energetic process begins gently, with the cold air nudging upward the warm air above it. The atmosphere rarely acts with violence at first. It begins with a small, subtle push, a quiet transition that grows only when conditions continue to favor rapid ascent. The result may be a line of towering clouds, but the beginning is always delicate, a whisper of motion, a few molecules drifting upward. The boundary where warm air meets cold air is not a wall or a sharp line. It is more like a zone of blending, where temperatures shift gradually, where molecules mix in patterns too small to see. Within this zone, countless tiny droplets form, growing into clouds that move with the air currents. These clouds often change shape as they drift along the front, stretching into long streaks or gathering into soft, rounded clusters. Each formation reflects a moment in the ongoing dialogue between warm and cold, a conversation carried out through rising and falling motion. As you breathe, imagine the warm air rising with each inhale, lifting gently toward the sky. Then imagine the cold air descending with each exhale, settling softly toward the earth. This is the same motion that the atmosphere performs constantly, always balancing, always adjusting, always allowing warm and cold to coexist in harmony. The dance between these two temperatures is not a struggle but a partnership, each shaping the other into patterns that bring the world its weather. When warm and cold air meet over oceans, the interaction can be especially graceful. Warm ocean currents send moisture upward, forming clouds that drift inland. Cold air flows downward from the poles, creating long bands of fog or low clouds that skim the water's surface. The meeting of these two types of air creates calm, steady breezes, the kind that gently rock boats in harbors and whisper through coastal grasses. Over time, the mixing of warm and cold helps regulate the ocean's temperature, ensuring that the sea does not grow too warm or too cold, but remains in a state of quiet equilibrium. Over mountains, the dance becomes more intricate. When warm air encounters a mountain slope, it rises even higher, cooling quickly and forming clouds along the peaks. These clouds may cling to the mountains for hours, forming gentle caps or veils of mist. Meanwhile, cold air descending from mountaintops flows down into valleys, settling like a soft, invisible blanket. In these regions, warm and cold air often glide past each other in layers, creating a vertical choreography that shapes the weather in patterns unique to each landscape. Sometimes the interaction of warm and cold air creates pockets of stillness regions where neither dominates. These areas can feel unusually calm, with soft, diffused light and gentle winds. The air feels balanced, neither heavy with cold nor buoyant with warmth. In such moments, the world feels suspended, as though the atmosphere is taking a breath, resting between movements of its ongoing dance. These pauses occur naturally and frequently, though most people pass through them without noticing. Yet if you stand quietly in such a moment, you may feel something subtle in the air, a softness that signals perfect balance. Humans are sensitive to these transitions. When warm and cold air trade places, we feel shifts in pressure that can influence our mood and physical sensations. A drop in pressure may bring a sense of heaviness or calmness. A gentle rise can bring alertness or clarity. These experiences are part of our connection to the atmosphere, reminders that we live within these temperature dances and respond to them instinctively. The air that surrounds us is not separate from us. We inhale it, we exhale it, and we feel its quiet movements as surely as the trees feel the wind. The subtle dance of warm and cold air also creates many of the clouds we find calming cirrus clouds that stretch in thin lines across the sky. alto cumulus that form soft clusters, stratus clouds that blanket the horizon with gentle gray. These clouds do not form from storms or dramatic shifts, but from quiet moments of mixing, where warm and cold meet slowly, evenly, peacefully. Watching these clouds drift across the sky can be deeply calming, a reminder of the atmosphere's soft rhythms. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine warm and cold air moving around each other within your mind. Picture warm thoughts rising gently and cool thoughts settling softly, balancing each other in slow, soothing motion. Allow this image to guide your breath, letting every inhale lift something within you, and every exhale release something downward. Feel the quiet equilibrium building inside you, as natural and effortless as the atmosphere's own balance. Tonight, let yourself drift in that subtle dance. Feel warmth and coolness within your breath, within your thoughts, within your body. Let them meet gently, mixing without force, finding a point of harmony. The atmosphere never forces its movements, it adjusts, responds, and flows. You can do the same. 16. The Northern and Southern Lights. Far above the quiet world, in the thin, cold air near the poles, the sky sometimes awakens into soft, shimmering motion. Curtains of green drift across the darkness. Ribbons of purple stretch and curl like slow-moving streams. Waves of pale blue rise and fall, glowing gently against the blackness of space. These are the northern and southern lights, the auroras, one of nature's most delicate and ethereal displays. They move not with sound or force, but with quiet grace, weaving across the night like whispers of light. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your thoughts soften into stillness, we journey into this peaceful phenomenon, exploring how these silent lights come to life and why they feel so deeply calming to behold. The story of the auroras begins with the sun, though not with its familiar warmth or light. The sun constantly releases a stream of tiny, charged particles into space. This stream, called the solar wind, flows outward in all directions, brushing past planets, moons, and everything in between. Most of the time, these particles drift harmlessly through space, spreading thinly across the solar system. But when they approach Earth, something beautiful happens. Our planet's magnetic field gently guides them toward the poles, drawing them into the upper atmosphere, like soft currents flowing toward a shore. Earth's magnetic field acts as a protective shield, wrapping around the planet in an invisible cocoon. When the charged particles of the solar wind encounter this field, they spiral along the magnetic lines, drifting toward the north and south poles. Their journey is quiet, slow, and guided by forces that move at a pace too gentle for us to see. Once these particles reach the upper atmosphere, they collide softly with atoms and molecules of oxygen and nitrogen. These collisions are delicate, releasing tiny bursts of light that gather into glowing patterns across the sky. Each color of the aurora comes from a different kind of atmospheric interaction. Oxygen high in the atmosphere can produce vibrant green or, in rarer conditions, soft red. Nitrogen tends to create purples and pinks, blending with the greens in smooth, flowing waves. The altitude of the collision determines the shade. High above the Earth, rare red auroras shimmer like faint embers drifting across space. Closer to the planet, greens dominate, forming the iconic ripples most people imagine when they think of the northern lights. Purples and violets sometimes appear near the edges, where the lights fade into darkness. Imagine yourself standing beneath such a sky. The air is crisp and quiet, the ground blanketed in snow or frost, absorbing sound and creating a landscape of deep stillness. Above you, the sky brightens with movement that feels both ancient and gentle. The lights drift like slow-moving rivers, bending and curling in ways that seem alive. Yet they make no sound. leaving only the faint rustle of wind or the distant crackle of ice in the cold. The world feels vast and intimate at the same time, filled with cosmic motion, yet grounded in tranquil silence. Auroras unfold slowly. Sometimes they begin as faint smudges of light, barely visible against the stars. Over minutes or hours, they strengthen, forming arcs that stretch from one end of the sky to the other. These arcs may ripple, pulse, or fold into long, graceful curtains. The edges shimmer, like silk moving in a gentle breeze. Even when the lights brighten, they remain soft, never harsh, never glaring. Their glow feels like a natural part of the night, as though the sky itself were releasing a deep, peaceful breath. What makes auroras so calming is not just their beauty, but their rhythm. They move with a fluidity that mirrors the slow cycles of breath, rising and falling with unhurried grace. Watching them can feel like watching the ocean, not the crashing waves, but the gentle tides that drift onto a shore. They remind us that the universe moves in patterns much larger than ourselves, patterns that unfold with patience and care. Humans have always felt a quiet awe in the presence of auroras. Ancient cultures saw them as the spirits of ancestors, as celestial fires, as pathways between worlds. In some traditions, they were thought to be the reflections of mythical animals passing across the sky. In others, they were seen as messages from the heavens, gentle signs that the world was alive in ways both earthly and cosmic. Even now, people watching the lights often fall silent, not from fear, but from the soothing sense of wonder they evoke. Science offers clarity about their origins, but understanding the physics does nothing to reduce their magic. Charged particles meet atmospheric gases, a simple explanation for a display that feels anything but simple. The sky becomes a canvas, and the auroras paint themselves across it with slow, drifting motion. Each moment is unique, shaped by the energy of the solar wind, the temperature of the upper atmosphere, and the geometry of Earth's magnetic field. No two displays are ever the same. The auroras also remind us of Earth's natural protection. The magnetic field that guides the solar wind's particles toward the poles also shields the surface from harm. The lights are a peaceful expression of this protection, the visible glow of a shield working quietly above us. They show us that even the invisible forces surrounding our planet can create beauty as they do their work. In the southern hemisphere, the lights are just as serene. The aurora australis dances over Antarctica, Tasmania, and the southern oceans. These displays mirror their northern counterparts, glowing with greens and purples, drifting across the polar skies with the same gentle grace. In the south, the lights often feel even more remote, unfolding over landscapes untouched by human noise, where the only witnesses are snowfields, ice cliffs, and sleeping seas. Watching an aurora can change the sense of time. Minutes stretch into hours, hours slip into a gentle blur. The world grows quiet. The lights drift overhead in patterns impossible to predict, inviting the mind to release its grip on worry and move into a state of calm observation. The sky becomes a slow-moving meditation, a visual lullaby that speaks directly to the deeper, quieter parts of the mind. As you breathe now, imagine these lights above you, soft, flowing, luminous. Picture green waves drifting slowly across a star-filled sky. Picture purple edges curling inward, shimmering like ink spreading through water. Picture thin streams of red stretching upward, fading quietly into the dark. Let these lights move gently within your imagination, calming your thoughts, softening your breath, quieting your inner world. The auroras are the universe in motion, but they reveal themselves in silence. Allow the light to soothe you, to wash over your inner landscape like gentle tides of color. Feel the cool clarity of the polar night. Feel the vastness of the sky above you. Feel the peaceful glow drifting through your thoughts. 17. The serenity of distant lightning. there is a kind of lightning that carries no sound, a quiet illumination that flickers along the horizon like a gentle thought passing through the sky. This is distant lightning, sometimes called heat lightning, a soft glow born from storms too far away for their thunder to reach you. It appears on warm evenings and deep summer nights, when the air feels still and heavy, and the world seems to pause in its own kind of slow, dreaming breath. Tonight, as your mind settles and your body sinks deeper into rest, we drift into this serene phenomenon, exploring how distant lightning forms, why its thunder never arrives, and why its silent glow feels so calming to watch. Lightning itself is a sudden, powerful discharge of electricity, formed when turbulent air inside a storm cloud causes particles of ice and water to collide. These collisions separate electrical charges within the cloud, creating regions of positive and negative energy. When the difference between these charges grows strong enough, the electricity leaps across the gap in a swift, brilliant flash. Up close, lightning is fierce, bright, crackling, and accompanied by thunder that shakes the air. But when the storm is many miles away, the lightning becomes something entirely different. Its brightness softens with distance, its edges blur. It becomes a glow, a pulse, a distant reminder of a storm you cannot hear. The reason distant lightning appears without thunder is simple and gentle. Sound fades more quickly than light. Light travels almost instantaneously to your eyes, crossing great distances without losing its clarity. Thunder, however, is a sound wave. It relies on the air to carry it forward. As it travels, it disperses, weakens, and bends around obstacles. Eventually, it loses its strength, dissolving into silence long before the light of the lightning fades. When a storm is too far away, usually more than 10 to 15 miles, its thunder cannot reach you, but its lightning can. The result is a silent display of illumination, a peaceful flicker that lights up the sky without disturbing the world beneath it. Imagine a warm evening after a hot day. The sun has set, but the air still carries the memory of heat. Cicadas buzz in the distance. Leaves barely move. Over the horizon, clouds gather a storm, forming far away, where the atmosphere is cooling and releasing its energy. You cannot hear the storm's voice, but suddenly, the sky flickers. For just a moment, a soft light illuminates the underside of the distant clouds. Then darkness returns. A few seconds later, another flash. The sky pulses again, like the gentle heartbeat of the horizon. This is the serenity of distant lightning, a storm whispering from afar, offering only its glow. The light itself reflects off the clouds, scattering across layers of moisture in the atmosphere. This scattered light creates a diffuse, gentle illumination rather than a sharp, jagged bolt. The clouds become lanterns, glowing softly for brief instants before the darkness settles again. Sometimes the flashes appear in clusters, one after another, creating a rhythm that feels hypnotic. Other times they come in long pauses, each one a small surprise, a quiet reminder that the sky is alive, even when the world below is still. Distant lightning feels calming because it is both active and peaceful. It contains the energy of a storm, yet it offers only the visual part of that energy. There is no sudden sound, no gust of wind, no immediate sense of disturbance. You are separated from the storm by distance, enough distance that its power transforms into something gentle. The mind interprets these faraway flashes as signals of change happening safely elsewhere. They are reminders of nature's vastness, of weather unfolding across landscapes you cannot see, of processes too large and slow to disturb your quiet moment. Watching distant lightning is like watching waves from the shore. The ocean moves, but you remain still. There is also a natural rhythm to the flashes. They arrive unpredictably, yet somehow consistently. Even without sound, The lightning has presence, a soft pulse that seems to align with the heartbeat, with breath, with thought. Some people find themselves sinking into a meditative state while watching distant lightning, their minds drifting with each flash, releasing tension with each fade back into darkness. The sky becomes a canvas of soft illumination, a place where energy expresses itself without urgency. Sometimes distant lightning appears in sheets, illuminating the entire sky as if someone briefly lifted a veil. Other times it forms faint, branching lines that spread behind the clouds, barely visible through the layers of mist and vapor. These branching patterns resemble roots, rivers, or delicate cracks of ice, natural forms repeated at every scale. The similarity between these shapes and the patterns found in water, trees, and even inside the human body creates a sense of harmony. Lightning, in its distant form, becomes part of nature's repeating language. On warm summer nights, distant lightning often appears without any rainfall nearby. This can feel surreal. The sky flickers, but the ground remains dry, the air still warm. These flashes may come from towering storm clouds rising far beyond the horizon, their tops reaching altitudes where winds carry the lightning's glow outward, away from the rain below. To the viewer, the storm appears silent and gentle, as if the sky were breathing light instead of releasing thunder. Sometimes distant lightning reflects off layers of haze or humidity, giving the sky a soft pink or lavender tone. Other times it glows with pale gold or icy white. The colors depend on the particles in the air, the height of the clouds, and the angle of the light. Each flash is unique, shaped by the atmosphere's quiet workings. Watching these colors shift can feel like watching the sky paint itself in slow, fleeting strokes. Distant lightning also shapes the landscape in subtle ways. Trees cast brief shadows. Hills and rooftops appear for an instant in sharp relief before fading again. The world seems to flicker between clarity and darkness, a visual rhythm that feels almost like a lullaby when viewed from a safe, calm place. The land sleeps, the sky dreams. As you breathe now, imagine sitting beneath a wide, dark sky. The air is warm. The world around you is quiet. Far away, beyond the hills or the trees or the distant city lights, a storm glows softly. You do not hear it. You do not feel its wind. You see only its gentle pulse. Flash, darkness, flash, darkness. Each glow, a breath. Each moment of darkness, a pause. The sky is speaking in light alone, offering its energy in the softest possible way. Let this image soothe you. Let each flicker be a release, a letting go of something you no longer need. Let the darkness between flashes be rest, a space for stillness, a place for calm. The storm is distant. You are safe. The light is soft. Your breath is easy. 18 moon halos, and the quiet geometry of ice. There are nights when the sky feels unusually delicate, when the moon glows not in its usual clean circle, but behind a soft, luminous ring. This halo, faint yet unmistakable, spreads outward like a pale crown, a perfect circle suspended in the quiet darkness. It hovers there with a gentle presence, appearing as if the night has decided to draw a boundary of light around its brightest companion. Tonight, as we continue drifting through the calm mysteries of weather and sky, we explore the quiet geometry of moon halos, how they form, why their shapes are so precise, and why they feel so comforting to witness under the stillness of night. A moon halo begins far above the world, in the thin, cold air of the upper atmosphere. At these altitudes, high clouds called cirrostratus drift quietly across the sky. These clouds are made not of water droplets, but of tiny ice crystals, delicate prisms, and hexagonal plates that float gently, carried by winds too distant for us to feel. Each crystal is shaped with astonishing precision. Many form into six-sided columns, or flat, hexagonal flakes, each face polished by the cold air. These crystalline shapes act like tiny glass prisms, bending and refracting any light that passes through them. When moonlight enters these ice crystals, it slows down and changes direction, bending inward or outward depending on the angle at which it strikes the crystal. Because the crystals are hexagonal, they refract the light at specific, predictable angles, most often around 22 degrees. This angle is what creates the moon halo. Each ice crystal refracts a small piece of moonlight outward, but when thousands or millions of these crystals drift together across a wide region of sky, their refracted light overlaps, forming a smooth, circular ring around the moon. The halo's shape is an expression of the ice crystal's geometry. Its circle is not a projection or a trick of the eye. It is the perfect result of light-meeting structure, moonlight moving through prisms suspended miles above the Earth. The circle looks uniform because the crystals are oriented randomly, allowing light to refract from every direction. Without this randomness, the halo would distort. But because the ice crystals drift freely, turning and tumbling in the thin air, the circle becomes complete, evenly lit, and wonderfully symmetrical. Imagine looking up at the sky on such a night. The moon shines with a soft, cool glow, its light diffused by the high clouds. Around it, the halo shimmers faintly, blending into the darkness with a gentle gradient. It does not announce itself loudly. You might even miss it at first glance. But once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. The ring becomes a quiet companion, a soft boundary between moonlight and shadow. The presence of a moon halo often signals moisture drifting into the upper atmosphere. These ice-filled clouds can be the first signs of a distant front or weather system approaching. But these changes are subtle, unfolding slowly over hours or days, not with sudden force. In this way, the halo becomes a gentle messenger, a whisper from the future sky, not a warning but a suggestion of change. It connects the viewer to the broader movements of the atmosphere, the slow drift of clouds, and the quiet transitions that shape the weather we experience below. During winter, the halo can appear brighter, sharper, and more pronounced, especially in polar regions where ice crystals are abundant. In these cold environments, the halo may expand into more complex shapes, pillars of light extending upward or downward, arcs forming above or below the moon, intersecting rings that resemble the gentle geometry of snowflakes themselves. These additional shapes, though rare, emerge from the same principle: moonlight interacting with ice crystals in precise, structured ways. Each variation represents a different orientation or shape of crystal, each creating its own pattern of refracted light. The halo's color comes from the bending of light. Often it appears white, but sometimes faint colors emerge along its inner edge. Red can appear closest to the moon, with blue or violet forming a softer outer rim. This separation occurs because different wavelengths of light bend at slightly different angles, just as they do in rainbows. But because moonlight is far dimmer than sunlight, these colors are subtle, muted, almost ghost-like hints of a spectrum, rather than a fully blossomed display. Their softness feels natural, as though the night were whispering rather than singing. Watching a moon halo can feel like stepping into a deeper sense of time. Unlike lightning or rain or clouds that drift steadily across the sky, a halo forms quietly and remains steady as long as the ice crystals stay in place. You can look away and look back again minutes later, and the same circle will still be there, unchanged. It has a presence that feels timeless, a shape unchanged by wind or sound or movement on the ground. In this way, the halo invokes a deep calm, reminding you that the sky, even in motion, can hold moments of perfect stillness. If you imagine yourself standing beneath such a halo, the world around you becomes gentle and quiet. The air feels crisp, perhaps cold, and the ground beneath your feet glimmers faintly in the moonlight. Trees cast soft, flat, elongated shadows. The night is hushed, holding only the faint rustle of leaves or the distant call of an owl. Above you, the halo glows, its outer edge fading into the dark, its inner edge outlining the moon. You feel small, in the best of ways, held by the sky, embraced by light that has traveled across space, only to be reshaped by ice high above you. Moon halos also reveal the interconnectedness of Earth and sky. The ice crystals that form them are created from water that once existed on the surface in oceans, lakes, rivers, or moist soil. This water evaporated into vapor, rose into the atmosphere, drifted across continents, and eventually froze into crystals, miles above the surface. These crystals refract moonlight, creating the halo you see. The entire process is a cycle: water rising, freezing, refracting light, and eventually falling back to the ground in some form. The halo is a moment within that cycle, a quiet pause where nature reveals the elegance hidden within its everyday motions. As you breathe now, imagine the moon surrounded by its halo, soft and luminous. Picture the ice crystals drifting through the sky like tiny, weightless prisms. Imagine the light bending through them, forming the circle overhead. Let this image bring calm to your thoughts. Let the halo surround your mind the way it surrounds the moon, creating a boundary of softness, of clarity, of peace. Feel the stillness of the night sky settling within you. Feel the quiet geometry of the halo soothing your thoughts, rounding their edges, softening their shapes. The halo is not loud or dramatic. It is a moment of gentle alignment, light, ice, and sky cooperating in perfect calm. Allow that calmness to deepen inside you. Let it wrap around your awareness like the halo wraps around the moon. 19. Mist. Rising from lakes and rivers. Mist rising from water is one of the gentlest sights the natural world offers. A soft, drifting veil that lifts quietly from the surface, unhurried and faint as a memory. It appears in the early hours of morning or in the calm moments after sunset, when the air cools faster than the water beneath it. In these borderlands between night and day, the lake or river seems to breathe, releasing thin ribbons of vapor that glide upward in slow, graceful motions. Tonight, as you settle deeper into rest and let your breath drift like a quiet tide, we explore the serenity of mist rising from lakes and rivers, how it forms, why it floats the way it does, and why it feels so calming to watch. Mist begins with warmth. During the day, sunlight warms the surface of lakes and rivers, heating the top layer of water. Water stores heat differently than air. It warms slowly, and it cools slowly. As evening falls and the air begins to release its warmth, the water remains slightly warmer than the surrounding atmosphere. This difference sets the stage for mist. The warmer water evaporates into the cooler air above it, releasing tiny droplets of vapor. Normally, these droplets stay invisible, blending softly into the atmosphere. But when the air is cold enough, the vapor condenses into tiny suspended droplets, forming mist that hovers gently above the water. This mist forms a thin, delicate layer, so light and ephemeral that the slightest breeze can shift its entire shape. Each droplet is incredibly small, floating effortlessly in the air. Unlike fog, which can blanket entire landscapes, mist remains close to the water's surface, rising only a few feet before dissipating. Its presence is like a whisper, a quiet release of warmth from the water into the coolness of the air. Imagine standing at the edge of a lake just before dawn. The sky is pale, the world still dark, and the air cool enough to nip lightly at the skin. The water lies calm, a smooth, glass-like surface reflecting the faint glow of early morning. From the surface, thin strands of mist rise, drifting upward in slow, curling motions. Some trails lift straight into the air, while others bend and sway, carried by the gentlest of breezes. The mist moves like breath, like a soft exhalation, escaping the water's surface, as though the lake itself were sighing into the morning. Because mist forms in the calmest conditions, the world around it tends to feel especially peaceful. Birds may remain quiet, waiting for the sun to rise. Trees are still. The water's surface barely ripples. Even sound behaves differently in this environment, traveling softly, as though padded by the moisture in the air. Footsteps along the edge of the lake feel muted. Distant sounds blend into the background. The entire landscape seems to be in a suspended moment, a natural pause before the day begins. Mist is shaped by temperature differences, but its movement is shaped by air currents. Since it is so light, mist responds instantly to even the softest breeze. It swirls gently, splitting into strands or merging into thicker patches. Sometimes it hangs low to the water, barely rising at all. Other times, it curls upward in silky spirals. Watching mist move can be mesmerizing, an invitation to slow your thoughts, to follow the drifting patterns without expectation or effort. Its motion is unpredictable, yet always soft, always slow, always calming. If you look closely, you may notice that mist tends to form more strongly in areas where the water remains warmest near the shoreline, around shallows, or above rocks that have absorbed heat during the day. These small variations in temperature create subtle shapes in the mist. A slightly warmer patch of water may release a column of vapor, while a cooler patch remains clear. The result is a landscape of drifting, shifting patterns, each one unique to the moment you are witnessing. Mist also plays with light in a gentle way. When the sun begins to rise, its rays pass through the mist, scattering softly and creating a faint, glowing haze. The light appears golden, diffused, and serene. Sometimes the mist catches the first rays of sunlight and glimmers with a delicate brightness, as though tiny sparks were suspended in the air. At other times, the mist thickens just enough to soften the landscape entirely, creating a world where edges blur and colors fade into gentle gradients. This softened light calms the eyes and the mind, inviting stillness and contemplation. Animals respond to mist in ways that reveal their sensitivity to the environment. Fish swim closer to the surface, drawn by the slight warmth lingering near the water's edge. Waterbirds glide silently across the water, leaving trails of ripples that gently disturb the mist rising above them. Deer and other mammals approach lakes and rivers at dawn to drink, their breaths forming their own misty clouds. Each movement feels hushed, part of the same quiet rhythm that defines the early hours of mist-covered landscapes. Mist can also hold scent in a special way. Because it forms from evaporating water, it carries with it the faint aroma of the lake or river, a cool, earthy scent that feels clean and refreshing. When you breathe in the morning air near misty water, you sometimes catch hints of vegetation, soil, and distant forests. These scents drift lightly, mingling with the moisture and creating a calming sensory experience that helps the mind settle into a slower pace. The scientific explanation for mist is simple: warm water meeting cool air. But its emotional effect is something deeper. Mist gives the impression of a world that is waking gently. It creates a bridge between night and day, between stillness and activity, between the hidden and the seen. In mist, the world feels closer, more intimate, as though wrapped in a soft, comforting veil. The horizon tightens, details blur, the mind is invited to rest. Imagine now that you are standing by a river at dawn. The water flows quietly, its surface dark and reflective. Mist rises in slow curls, drifting across the surface before dissolving into the morning air. Your breath, too, mixes with the coolness, forming soft clouds that vanish almost as soon as they appear. The world feels hushed, the air feels tender. The mist moves in patterns too delicate to follow, yet soothing enough to quiet even the deepest restlessness. As you breathe gently now, imagine the mist rising from your thoughts, softening their edges, lifting their weight, dissolving them into calm. Let each inhale gather stillness, and each exhale release tension the way mist releases warmth from the water. Mist teaches us that even the smallest motion can be soothing, that even the quietest expression of the natural world holds beauty, that even transition can be tranquil. Let this image settle inside you: the drifting mist, the calm water, the gentle morning air. Rest in its peace. 20. The gentle rhythm of ocean tides. Ocean tides are among the oldest rhythms on Earth, a slow, steady rise and fall that has shaped shorelines, guided ancient travelers, and brought calm to countless people who have stood at the edge of the sea. They move with a patient regularity, advancing and retreating in cycles so smooth that their presence feels like the planet's own breath. To watch a tide come in or drift away is to witness time in motion, expressed not in minutes or hours, but in long, gentle pulses. Tonight, as you settle even deeper into rest and let your own breath follow its quiet rhythm, we explore the serenity of ocean tides, how they form, why they move as they do, and why their patient motion brings such deep calm to the heart. Tides are shaped primarily by the gravitational pull of the moon. As the moon orbits the Earth, its gravity tugs gently on the oceans, pulling water toward it and creating a bulge on the side of the Earth facing the moon. At the same time, another bulge forms on the opposite side of the planet due to the combined effects of Earth's rotation and the inertia of the water. These bulges slowly circle the globe as the Earth turns, resulting in 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day. Though these motions are driven by celestial mechanics, forces vast and ancient, the effect they create along coastlines is soft and graceful. Imagine the moon hanging quietly above the horizon, its pull reaching across hundreds of thousands of miles to touch the ocean's surface. Nothing about this pull feels forceful. It is gentle, steady, consistent. The water responds gradually, rising in slow inches at first, then in smooth waves that advance up the shore. Seashells shift softly, pools deepen, sand darkens as the tide moves inland. If you stand by the water's edge, you may not notice the movement at first, but return a few minutes later, and the change becomes clear. The tide creeping forward with patient determination. The sun also plays a role, adding its own gravitational pull to the process. When the Earth, Moon, and Sun line up during new and full moons, their combined pull creates higher tides, called spring tides. During quarter moons, when the Sun and Moon form a right angle relative to Earth, their gravitational forces partially cancel each other, creating lower, gentler tides known as neap tides. These cycles unfold with quiet regularity, following the rhythms of the lunar month, guiding the ocean in patterns that repeat endlessly through time. Tides do not move the same way everywhere. The shape of the coastline, the depth of the water, the contours of the sea floor, and even the wind can influence how the tide behaves in a particular place. In narrow bays, tides can rise quickly, funneling water inward. On flat, sandy beaches, they arrive more slowly, spreading thinly across wide stretches of shore. Some regions experience dramatic tidal ranges, where the water climbs many feet between low and high tide. Others see only slight differences, yet no matter the location, the tide's presence is rhythmic and predictable, offering a sense of stability in a world of constant change. Imagine yourself standing on a quiet beach as the tide begins to rise. The sky above is soft with early light, or dim with approaching dusk. Waves roll in with gentle consistency, not crashing, but flowing, each one a small expression of the tide's larger motion. The sound is steady, rhythmic, like a whisper repeating itself. With each wave, the water advances slightly, then withdraws, then advances again. The shoreline shifts under your feet, reshaping itself in subtle ways. Wet sand gleams beneath the shallower water, reflecting the sky with a muted glow. This rhythm has a calming effect on the mind. Humans are naturally soothed by steady patterns, heartbeats, breathing, footsteps, and waves. The tides offer a version of rhythm that is even slower and more expansive, stretching across hours instead of seconds. When you watch the tide move, your own sense of time begins to soften. Thoughts slow, breath deepens, awareness shifts outward, aligning itself with the ocean's relaxed motion. Low tide reveals a world that was hidden only hours before. Tide pools shimmering with stillness, rocks covered in tiny barnacles, seaweed drifting gently in shallow water. Creatures emerge from the water to feed or rest. Shorebirds search the newly exposed sand for food, their movements quiet and precise. The world is calm and open during low tide. The ocean pulled back like a curtain, revealing its textures and patterns. High tide brings a different kind of tranquility. The water rises and smooths the landscape, covering rocks and pools beneath a reflective surface. Waves lap gently at the shore, creating a soft, repetitive rhythm that feels almost like a lullaby. Boats sway slowly in the rising water. The horizon expands, and the sea appears fuller, deeper, more complete. Each phase of the tide carries its own peace: the openness of low tide, the fullness of high tide, and the transitions in between. Even at night, the tides continue their slow motion. Under the glow of the moon, the water glimmers softly, rising and falling as if responding to the moon's pale light. The sound of the tides becomes even more soothing in the darkness, a gentle reminder that the ocean never sleeps. It breathes through the night, whispering along the shore in patterns as ancient as the earth itself. The steady gravitational pull behind tides also creates a sense of connection between earth and moon, between water and sky, between movement and stillness. The tide is not random or chaotic. It follows celestial rhythms, responding to cycles far larger than human life. When you watch the tide, you witness the physical expression of these cosmic interactions. You feel, in some small and quiet way, the presence of the moon's gentle pull shaping the world you stand on. As you breathe now, imagine your breath rising and falling like the tide. Let your inhale be a soft inward movement, and your exhale a gentle release. Feel your body settling into the rhythm of the ocean, not hurried, not forced, simply flowing. The tide teaches us that movement can be slow, steady, and peaceful. It shows us that change can come gradually, and that stillness can exist even within motion. Imagine the shore at twilight. The tide is coming in, smoothing the sand with each gentle touch. Waves move with deliberate calm. The air is cool and filled with the scent of salt. The sky holds the faint glow of fading light. You stand there, feeling the steady pulse of the sea, a rhythm older than memory, steady as breath, quiet as sleep. Let that rhythm settle into you now. Let it soothe your thoughts, calm your body, and soften your breathing. Let the gentle rise and fall of the tide carry you inward, toward rest.